Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
People think that a locally owned and operated appliance store may not offer what they need. Actually, we have trained and dedicated sales associates, expert delivery and installation, professional repair service, and personal customer service. Plus, we have access to a huge local warehouse with over 6,000 models in stock. Crane Appliance. We call the Cape and Islands home. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs.
Hosting services for fctv.org are provided by Meganet Communications. Meganet offers a wide array of internet services including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server co-location, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their number one goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-2638 or meganet.net.
Welcome everyone to the June 3rd, 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting at Selectmen Meeting Room, Town Hall. The first order of business will be a Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is an exciting one for the Board of Selectmen. We are going to do our reorganization, which is when we choose a new chair of the board as well as a new vice chair of the board.
Madam Chair?
Would the board like to proceed?
I would move that we have our new chair be Megan English Braga.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I would move that we have Doug Brown be our newest vice chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Great.
Voila.
All right.
Yeah. I really just want the gavel.
Thank you.
I feel super. And here's all the good stuff.
Great.
Does it come with a Mercedes?
Yes, it's parked right out front. All right, so next we have.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you, congratulations. Proclamation. did you want to read that, Sam?
Oh, surely. Whereas Patrick Richard Preston of Boy Scout Troop 42 has successfully completed the qualifications for the rank of Eagle, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Patrick Richard Preston met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. And the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank. And whereas Patrick Richard Preston is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege, now therefore we, Susan L. Moran, Megan English Braga, Douglas C. Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, as selectmen of the town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim Saturday, June the 8th, 2019, as Patrick Richard Preston Day throughout Falmouth. In witness thereof, we have hereunto set our hand and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Patrick, do you want to come on up and just tell us a little bit about your project?
Hi.
Hi.
So, essentially my project was, well, first of all, this was a passion project not only for me, but also for my beneficiary, which was Father Steve of St. Anthony's down East Falmouth. What it consisted of was that I built, or rather established a youth center in the lodge of St. Anthony's Church. And what that consisted of was a lot of organization with me and the rest of Troop 42. And essentially we decided that we would establish a center in which the youth of Falmouth or the youth of St. Anthony's would gather and just sort of remove themselves from just the stressful lives that because a lot of youth like my age, they just go through like a really stressful time, a lot of peer pressure, a lot of academic pressures that come their way. I felt like the center would be very appropriate for that cause. And so what this consisted of was we would get together and we would go into the lodge of St. Anthony's, and there's this huge conference room that used to be on the stage where the in St. Anthony's. So we would go into that conference room, we would remove all the tables and chairs, i.e. make it no longer a conference room. So that was kind of fun. And what we did was, one of the fun things we did was we took the back wall and we used this very special paint, which basically if you paint over it, it turns the wall into essentially a big dry erase board. Oh, cool. Right. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. It took like 6 coats of paint, so that was that was a nuisance. But yeah, it was very cool to see it in action. Another thing we did was we put on a lot of chairs and sofas and other very comfortable furniture in there. That really just completed the whole image. And another thing is that the church actually, they also have, in addition to the conference room that they seldom use, they also have old TVs that they used to use for they have these old TVs that they don't really use anymore. So we decided, hey, we would bring that into the youth center as well, and we would plug in like the Wii, and we would just have like a whole game system. Great. Yeah, and that was kind of fun because it's always really sad to see something that could be fun or like something that could entertain people just sort of taking up some dust. But it's really cool to put it in the youth center and see it like rejuvenated. But yeah, it required a lot of teamwork from the troop, teamwork that I was really grateful for, and it was just a very gratifying experience when it was all done. And again, it was great to see that Father Steve's vision was fulfilled. I'm glad that I could fulfill like my passion project along with his. It was just a really gratifying experience.
That's wonderful, and something that will last for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure get a lot of use.
That's exactly the goal. We want this to last as long as possible. We want a lot of people to use as much as possible. That's exactly the goal.
That's great. What a great idea. Well, thank you and congratulations.
Yes,
absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Are they going to name it the Preston Youth Center?
Actually, that would be a good title, but one title we actually did come up with is Father Steve actually assembles a program called Fanning the Flames, which is essentially like fanning the flames of like St. Anthony's. And so I said like, hey, I thought of the idea of flames, and I said, why don't we call this thing the fire pit, as this is the,
Great.
this was the origin of the flame.
Yeah.
I just came with it on the spot, so, but the Preston Youth Center, that could
That was
be,
a close second, right?
there's potential there, yeah.
Good job.
Congratulations, great
Thank you
job.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Great. Next, we'll have a proclamation for the Day of Portugal, which is also this Saturday. Does anyone want to read the proclamation? Anyone in particular? Doug, want to read it?
Sure.
Whereas the town of Falmouth is home to a large number of Portuguese American people, and whereas the Portuguese culture is praiseworthy and world famous, and whereas Luís Vaz de Camões, the famous 16th century epic poet, is a symbol of Portuguese cultural achievements and is honored by Portuguese people the world over on this day, and whereas members and friends of the Portuguese have formed an association to foster Portuguese culture and instill a pride of heritage, and whereas a committee was organized to plan a celebration of these events, the Day of Portugal, the remembrance of the dearly departed, and whereas the Falmouth joins with the Portuguese other Portuguese communities in recognition of Luís Vaz de Camões' great accomplishment of recording Portugal's notable and remarkable history to be promoted on this day, and whereas this June, the President of Portugal, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, and Vasco Cordeiro, the President of the Regional Government of the Azores, will visit the United States, including Boston, for a special celebration of the Day of Portugal. Now, therefore, we, Susan L. Moran, Megan English Braga, Douglas H. Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, as selectmen of the town of Falmouth, by the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim June 8th, 2019, as Day of Portugal. In witness thereof, we have hereto set our hand and seal caused by the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed on this 3rd day of June, 2019.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Tickets are still available for that night?
And that visit by the Portuguese Council is coming tomorrow, I guess, to the State House in Boston.
Yes, the president of the Azores is coming, is I think gonna be there
Yeah.
tomorrow. So. And there's also a mass at St. Anthony's for this, as part of the celebration, tomorrow, actually, I think, so. Okay, great. Recognition, I don't know if anybody else, did you have something?
I have one. I wanted to recognize the work of Dick Batchelor. His memorial service was held on Saturday. He was a cameraman for FCTV, and he did a lot of documentaries for over a period of 20 years, extremely active. At his memorial service, there were 10 to 12 people from FCTV there to show their gratitude. But quiet guy, he was always behind a camera at town meeting, and he's been a contributor to the town in a way that most people don't recognize. But he did get recognized at the memorial service, and I just want to mention that even though he passed away approximately a month ago, he did serve the town in remarkable ways, and we appreciate very much all of the contributions he made during his life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any announcements?
I have two, if I could. The VIPs, the Volunteers in Public Schools, the Feast of Falmouth is this Friday, starting at 5 o'clock at Mahoney's Garden Center. I know I've been many years, and it's a great occasion. You get to walk around and sample the food of various restaurants that contribute that. There is a fee, which is a fundraiser for the VIPs organization. So that's this Friday, starting at 5 at Mahoney's Garden Center in East Falmouth, of course. And then there's a second one, and that's the Rotary Day of Play. You've probably seen the signs around town. It's this Saturday from 9 or 8 to noon at Mullen Hall School. It's basically going to be a cluster. Well, you may have heard the announcement when they came before us for the permission for the event. But approximately 40 vendors are going to be there with booths, and they're going to be games and displays and gifts and what have you. And it's intended for families and their children. So come out. Hopefully the weather will be nice.
This Saturday morning.
This Saturday morning at Mullen Hall School. So it should be it's a new event, and it should be a fun one.
Any other announcements? Okay. Now we'll have public comment, which is a period of time for anyone to speak about something that's not on the agenda this evening. You have up to 2 minutes to speak about that topic. Any public comment? Yes, Come on up, Dr. Schneider.
There's one event taking place Friday night as well, and it does involve the town of Falmouth Dog Park. And there is a fundraiser being held at the Cape Cod Winery from 6 to 9 p.m., and there are 5 more tickets left for that event. And you can have them by going to our website or falmouthdogpark.com or the Facebook page, or by calling me at 508-331-2929. So just a little plug for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that
I
reminder.
hope we would be able to speak on an agenda item as the evening progresses.
It's on the agenda.
What a coincidence, 5 tickets.
I know. She didn't plan that. All right, next, under summary of actions, we have application for change of address of taxi license, Falmouth Taxi, 424 East Falmouth Highway, East Falmouth.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Application for new common victualler license, the Village Cafe of West Falmouth, located at 634 Route 28A, West Falmouth. Any questions about it?
Great place. I am an next-door neighbor. I don't think that's a conflict. It's a great public place, employs local people, and really vitalizes the village, and just incredible food and very caring owner.
Any other? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Oh, yeah.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Application for change of manager of an all-alcohol common victualler license, Falmouth Raw Bar, located at 56 Scranton Avenue, Falmouth. Is the applicant present or someone here? Okay. If you want to come up and just introduce yourself, in case anyone has any questions, please.
Hi, my name's Mike Ricciardi.
Welcome.
I'm here for the change of manager.
Did anyone have any questions about?
Have you been a manager of a liquor license before?
First time,
This is your first time?
but I have experience managing.
And so you are, and this is not asking you differently than anybody else, but anytime we have a manager of a liquor license, you're aware that you are legally responsible for what goes on dealing with the liquor license, and that you'll be the one who will be coming to make sure that people are tip certified and all the regulations concerning
Yes, sir.
liquor. Excellent. And are you looking, do you live in Falmouth?
I do.
Okay.
What quote?
I would move approval of the change of manager of all common victual license to Michael Ricciardi.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. Is that one to you guys? Okay, application for 3 special one-day wine and malt liquor licenses, Silver Beach Improvement Association Incorporated, Summer Socials at the tennis courts on corner of West Avenue and Ocean Avenue, North Falmouth, Saturdays 7/13/19, 8/3/19, and 8/31/19.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Before we
Oh,
do,
sorry.
I noticed that there was a solicitation for staff comments, and we didn't really receive any. I assume everything is okay. Julian, do you have any?
We would have gotten the complaints.
No, okay. No conditions then, other than what is
No
actually
issues.
specified. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see anything on that particular.
That's fine, then I yield. Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, next is application for a special one-day wine and malt liquor license, Tropical Events, Cape Cod Jerk Fest, Cape Cod Fairgrounds, 1220 Nathan Ellis Highway, on Sunday, June 23rd, 2019.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Application for a special one-day wine and malt liquor license, Falmouth Arts Center, their summer gala fundraiser, Falmouth Arts Center, 137 Gifford Street, Friday, June 12th, 2019.
July.
Excuse me, July, thank you, 12th, 2019. Do I have a
Move approval?
second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Application for a new second-hand dealer license, Modern Day Fairy Tale, located at Home Again Consignment Shop, 94 East Falmouth Highway, East Falmouth. Is the applicant someone here?
She's been before, and we've approved, I think maybe 3 or 4 prior applications. It looks like it's gonna be sort of a.
Similar type of.
Yeah, consortium of consignments.
This says the area at that address, and 94 East Falmouth, but that looks like Johnny's Lube and Tube. Is it
No, it's
behind it?
across
or-
the street.
It's on the opposite side?
Yeah,
Oh, I
it's
know.
that little
Thatcher's Lane.
building
Yeah,
across.
I know exactly where it is. I move approval.
Okay, second, anyone?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, next, under administrative orders, vote to approve the request from the Substance Abuse Commission to change its name to the Falmouth Commission on Substance Use. Is anyone here from the commission? I can just speak that as a liaison to that committee and just having seen some of the emails, their goal is essentially to just really be more in line with some of the current thinking and language around, you know, the substance use disorders. So instead of being substance abuse, it's the Commission on Substance Use. So again, it's just kind of becoming a little bit more modernized, the other language in the field. And, you know, certainly the committee has thought long and hard about it, and they brought it before the board.
Move approval?
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm gonna pass these down for signatures. Vote to accept easement from Lloyd, I'm sorry for the last name, Keegwin, for new access right-of-way to bikeway parking lot at County Road, North Falmouth. Mr. Suso, did you wanna?
Certainly, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposed easement from Mr. Kigwin.
Sorry.
He has a remnant, I may have mispronounced it as well, I'm not sure. I apologize if I've mispronounced it. He has a property remnant which is adjacent to the North Falmouth Bikeway parking lot, and this would grant an easement for a really more appropriately located public access walkway into the parking lot from the bikeway. And we appreciate the great efforts of the Bikeway Committee and others, as well as Mr. Kegwin, and working on that. I think we have a Bikeway Committee member with us, and perhaps the board might like to have some comments.
Did you wanna
as well.
come on up?
Thank you, Tim Shea, Bikeway Committee. The purpose of the easement was in the weekends, and particularly summer, fall, and springtime, the traffic patterns up there, well, there are none. You have vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists coming on, crossing roadways at random points, Pine Street, County Road, and the idea of the easement was to sort that out and keep vehicles on the roadway and the entrance and exit to the parking lot, and the cyclists and pedestrians would come on or off the bike path along the railroad fence and use the crosswalk, not cut across Pine Street or County Road, wherever they came out of the parking lot. So
Great.
that's what we chose to accomplish, and Mr. Keegan was very, and your pronunciations were correct.
Okay.
He was very helpful, and it also, I forgot to mention, the DPW put in a bike maintenance station and a water fountain in the parking lot, and it just so happens the easement is the easiest way to get the water line in off County Road to the parking lot, so it's now
win-win.
a multi-purpose easement.
Great,
Any
thank you.
questions?
No.
I do have,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
I was gonna ask Julian, are we gonna put a crosswalk there at that entrance? So
To
that
the-
people coming north on the bike path can actually have, if they get off their bikes and become pedestrians, can get the right of way?
There's one there now.
Yeah,
There
there
is
One there
one?
now,
Okay,
just on the west side of the railroad crossing. And
Excellent,
that would, you'd come across the crosswalk and directly enter the easement,
excellent,
and go along the fence into the parking lot, 10 or 15 yards from the road.
great. It's been about a year since I've been there, so.
Doug?
Has there been any thought to eliminating cars from going in that second area? Maybe the cars would only go in the one now that the bikes will be going through that second?
They've got, the DPW put a keep right signage
still
up
gonna go
there, so
through
the
there.
entrance is on your right as you look at it from
Yeah.
Pine Tree Street, and the exit is on your to the left, so it's a
Okay,
one-way in and out.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Madam Chair, if I could just also acknowledge Mr. Shea as well for his dedicated, continuous work in this process.
It's taken a lot of
It
work.
I got
involved
to meet
considerable
Lorraine,
time
and
and
thank you.
an effort and great leadership.
Great, thank Thank you.
I would move that we accept the easement from Lloyd Quaglin.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you, Tim. Pass it this way. Okay, we have, let's see, authorized beach department grant application for awards banquet. I see Mr. Magardo. Did you want to come and speak to this, Mr. Magardo?
Absolutely. I never want to miss an opportunity to talk about my beach program. Good evening, board member. Every year since 1981, the beach department has had an awards banquet. We've moved it around a few times. People put on real clothes, and we try to show each other the love and appreciation that we have for one another as a family. We also recognize outstanding performances with plaques that are special mementos forever for these people. We have people that are in their 40s and 50s who many years ago earned a plaque, and they're still proud as hell of it. And they come in the bathhouse and they look for their name because that was so important, and they point to their name with their kids and say, that was me. That's a special thing. We recently had the cost go up. Some of our people couldn't afford to go. So I pay for that. When the road race reached out to us and said, what can we do for you? I said, I have an idea. And so that's why we're applying for your permission to get a grant. Mr. Suso has been to several of our banquets. Any additional information I'm sure he could provide because he had a great time, as did his wife.
Thank you.
It's a terrific event annually, and it's a great rallying point and really a confirmation of an entire year's worth of efforts by all of the dedicated employees in the beach department. So it's very gratifying to observe and participate in.
Thank you.
And I see Finance Committee weighed in and didn't have any questions or concerns. That's just our usual practice, so. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great,
Thanks,
thank you,
Bruce.
thank you.
Thanks to the road race.
Yes. Vote to approve Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund request for CPA funds. Mr. Suso, did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We have Carla Ferroni here with us, and I think Carla can give us a nice summary of this request.
Come on up, Carla.
Thank you. Carla Froni, Falmouth Housing Coordinator. I'm here tonight to ask for you folks to approve a submission to the Community Preservation Committee for a request to fund the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund for $425,000. If you recall, back in May, it was just last month, it seems a longer time ago than that.
Pardon me, Carla. That's a later topic. This one is the review of the request for
The CPA.
CPA. That's what she was saying.
I think that's what she was.
she's building too.
Yeah, I think she was,
She's giving a little history on why this.
Oh, I apologize. My mistake. Forgive me.
Of course. So back in May, the Board of Selectmen voted to fund a project that came before the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund, Brick Kiln Place. And the ask for that project was $975,000. And at the time, the Affordable Housing Fund only had $650,000. And we said we would come back when funds were available and request the money to cover the shortfall, which is $325,000. So last week, the fund working group got together and they worked off of a balance, a known available balance of CPA money that we obtained through Carol Sutherland and Jen Petit, and determined that there was enough money to ask for an additional $100,000 just to have in the fund in case we need it when something arises. There's been a couple times when we've taken some steps to maintain the affordability of certain units. So the request is for $425,000, and we're seeking your approval to submit that request to the Community Preservation Committee.
okay, thank you.
And those are those transfers from reserves, not the typical, the annual time when we look at the CPC funds. This
That
is
is correct.
money that's already been set aside for these two purposes.
And I might say that there is a little bit of time urgency to this because this is not typical for the Community Preservation Committee. Normally, their regular grants get approved in the April town meeting, but since they would like to be able to authorize the submission of this while the contractor's building the project out, so that they actually can say, we can count on this money through the completion of the project. It's important to be able to commit to that, and so that's why it's coming up at this point and not waiting for next April town meeting.
I would move we approve the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund request for CPA funds for this November town meeting.
Would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you for that summary. Okay, I think we are actually right on time for our 7:30 public hearing. Fee hearing, aquaculture equipment rental fee. And let me just read the public hearing notice. As provided under Chapter 119 of the Code of Falmouth, a public hearing will be held in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, June 3rd, 2019, at 7:30 PM to establish and promulgate fees which are effective immediately to be charged by town departments and agencies, except as provided by MGL, School Department, Planning Board, Library, Town Clerk, Town Treasurer, and Collector of Taxes. Aquaculture rental fees. The following aquaculture rental fees are proposed to apply only to those aquaculture license holders within great ponds and estuaries who are awarded a license by the Board of Selectmen after June 4th, 2019. Rental fees are to be paid after oysters cultivated at the licensed premises are landed. After 280,000 oysters are landed from a site by a grower in one growing season, no additional fees will be assessed to that grower for additional oysters that are landed from that site in that year using rented equipment or supplies. And I guess let me just read this is the other piece that was printed. So, rented equipment supplies, upweller, unit upweller, proposed fee for 1,000 oysters landed, $14. There are no existing rental aquaculture fees to date for that. That will be a change. Field gear, unit, site, proposed fee per 1,000 oysters landed, $8. Overwintering facility, tote, proposed fee, 1,000 oysters landed, $8. Work float, 8 by 20 foot float, proposed fee per 1,000 oysters landed, $9. Gear storage, 2,000 square foot space, $3. Floating bags, unit bag, proposed fee per 1,000 oysters landed, $28. Susan L. Moran, Chairman, Board of Selectmen. This was in the Falmouth Enterprise, Friday, May 24th, 2019. You can explain what all of that means, Peter.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that we arrived at these fees through a process that involved a lot of dialogue with the Shellfish Advisory Committee, and we have a couple of members, including Chairman Peter Chase is here this evening, and may wish to speak to this as well. But just to begin with, what is the purpose of these fees? The town of Falmouth hasn't had rental fees for aquaculture before, and it really is to promote the success of this program. As we've discussed, we are promoting aquaculture in the estuaries as part of a nitrogen removal water quality initiative, as well as to stimulate a business opportunity and to promote propagation of shellfish for wild harvest. So these rental fees, we believe, will help the growers succeed because the town is uniquely positioned to offer some resources at a cost that is less than what would be, than these resources would be available to the private grower otherwise. These rental fees were calculated so that the town can recover its cost, and as we learn and as we get some experience with this program, we're hopeful that we might generate a little bit of net income that we can then invest in additional aquaculture propagation for wild harvest. So that's the purpose of this program. And we just want to be clear that all of the existing aquaculture licenses outside of the estuaries are not impacted by these rental fees at all. They are only for new licenses and licenses issued within the estuaries. Normally, I'm a big proponent of simplicity. These fees are a little bit more complicated, but there's a reason for it. So the rental fees are set up on a per thousand oysters or shellfish landed. And the reason for that is because we want to set this up in terms of the timing. It might be difficult for the grower to be able to pay upfront for these rentals. This, by having the payment tied to the landing of the shellfish, it's connected to when they're earning income on selling those shellfish. So the timing works out well for the grower. And also in terms of the amount charged, again, it's linked to the success of the grower. So it's per 1,000 shellfish, and the more successful they are, the more they will pay for those rental facilities, but it is capped. So there's an incentive for the grower to grow as much shellfish as they can and ultimately stop paying the per 1,000 oyster fee, which still benefits the town because we're trying to promote, maximum growing success for nitrogen removal purposes. So for those who are not familiar with some of these terms, an upweller is a container in the water that is used to grow out the tiny little shellfish seed to a larger size that can then be field planted, or I should say transferred to gear, to bags or cages for growing out. The field gear is the actual poles in the ground to which the racks and the bags will be affixed. An overwintering facility is needed for this program because the estuaries freeze. The shellfish has to be removed during the winter, and the town has an overwintering facility that we can make available to these growers. A work float is one of those items that really the town is the only entity that can provide this, because normally one would not be allowed to have a mooring in the estuary. So the town is authorized to do that, to create a mooring and have a work float attached to that mooring. And let's see, gear storage is self-explanatory. It's a shed where growers can store their gear. And the floating bags is the bags where the shellfish are grown out and placed in the racks out in the estuaries. So that's pretty much it. Again, the fees were calculated based on our best estimate of recovering the town's cost. Some of this equipment, some of these investments the town's already made, so that will generate some income to buy the next year's equipment and help keep the program going. So with that, I'd turn it over to questions.
Any questions?
So, I heard you say the fees are gonna go back into the program, so they're not going into the general fund. This will be a segregated account.
Exactly, the shellfish revolving account.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Doug?
And the units that they're, so when he says floating bags, it's enough bags to be able to operate a certain area? I mean, so what's the sort of actual quantity of the supplies that they're getting? It's not one bag.
It is one bag for $28, right?
And how many bags? So I was sort of adding up and saying, well, that's $70 if you add all those figures up. But if they need 20 bags or 100 bags, I guess is where I'm just not clear as to how many each of those units is a typical grower going to need to be able to perform the service.
Did Mr. Chase?
Mr. Chase looks like he's
You
ready
want
to
to come
answer
up
that
and maybe
question.
just kind of speak to the practicality?
I can. Yeah, so as Mr. Staub said before, $28 is per 1,000 oysters. So $28 will get you enough bags to grow 1,000 oysters.
Okay.
And I think the density we're working with is somewhere around 200 oysters per bag.
Okay. But when the unit is just what's referred to as a bag, but it's really enough bags to be able to do the job.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yep, good question. Any other questions on the board?
No.
Well, just a comment. You went over kind of quickly, but I think it's important that we get these shellfish out of the bottom of our estuaries, because if they decay, they're adding nitrogen to that system, which is what we're trying to control. And so this is an incentive really for more people to actually participate in this business opportunity.
Right, so, and in this particular case, where the immediate issue is the aquaculture, which will be in floating bags. So we're bringing the shellfish in, floating them in the water, having them grow by taking nitrogen out of the water, and then removing the shellfish and removing the nitrogen from the estuary, exactly.
But these won't be then, these are not to be then planted in the estuary themselves, are they?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. But Sam is correct that one of the components of this is to generate some of that income for propagation, which can be field planted, grown out then, in that case, in the ground, and then ultimately harvested by recreational or commercial shell fishermen.
Anyone here who wants to speak in favor of this? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition?
Got one with
Oh,
favor.
sorry, go, Mr.
I'm
Chase.
Pete Chase, Shellfish Advisory Committee. This was brought to us about a month or so ago. We had a lot of discussion about it, and the committee voted to support the fees, as you can see here. We think it makes sense for the growers. It helps improve the chances of success for the growers. It also puts some money back into the town for propagation efforts, so we think everybody wins.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else who want to make a comment on this? No? Okay.
I would move we actually continue this hearing to our next meeting, just so if there's anybody who's heard about this and wants to comment on, that we don't close it now. I think typically for fee hearings, we try to give them a little more time. And since they can't go into effect until they've gotten a new license, we don't have anyone coming today for a new license. If we approve it at our next meeting, even if we approve new licenses, then there'll be enough time to actually put it into.
Implement it.
Yep.
Okay.
Second on that motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So we'll continue it to our next meeting on, what's our next meeting date?
17th.
June 17th? Okay.
7:30.
At 7:30 PM?
Do fees need a supermajority vote? Because I will not be at that meeting after I've recommend that we continue it till.
Yeah.
To the best of my knowledge, I do not think it needs a supermajority.
Okay, great.
We'll double check that though.
Okay. I think I'm leaving for London that day as well, the 17th, at 10 PM. So there
We'll
will
have
be
to
a
end
quorum,
early.
but, okay. Okay. All right, returning back to the agenda, special events, reoccurring recommended, 4th of July Parade, MBL Water Street, Woods Hole, Thursday, July 4th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Paul White Memorial Road Race, Scott Mumma, North Falmouth Library Grounds in North Falmouth, Saturday, July 6, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Walk White Congregational Church Summer Bazaar, Walk White Congregational Church, one-way traffic on Parsons Lane, Thursday through Saturday, July 11th through July 13th.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ride for Homes, Adrian Whitus, Habitat for Humanity, Cape Cod Canal to Bike Path to Cape Cod Canal, Sunday, September 22nd, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have new recommended. Juneteenth Festival, Hawk Kite Powell, Woods Hole Diversity Advisory Committee, Peg Noonan Park, Saturday, June 15th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Harbor Lights Illumination Nights, Free Concert Series, Lillian Kazanis, Cape Cod Music Festival, Bandshell, Saturdays, 6:29, 7:20, 8:17, and 9:21.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Fashion Show, Samantha Peters, Inspiration is Everywhere Incorporated, Main Street Sidewalk, Saturday, August 10th, 2019.
Move approval.
All those in favor?
I
Second.
have one question about it. How will it work? Will it just be parading back and forth? Is anybody here?
Is anyone here for that event?
Just curious, I spoke with the.
It just,
Peter
yeah.
said
Yeah.
Oh, Peter, okay,
Peter
go
can
ahead, Peter.
comment on it.
Right, so the plan is to have 10 models walking down one side and then making a change and walking back down the other side. So all 10 sort of in a block walking on the sidewalk.
Okay.
Okay.
I was just curiously speaking to the manager of the Village Association, and she didn't know about it. And have they been, maybe she just didn't know, but others have been discussing it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, I have to believe that, the whole point is promoting some of the items that are stored in some of the local stores. So some of them clearly, the ones that are participating are aware, but the extent to which they've reached out to others, I don't know.
Well, that's what my question was, is this
Sure.
Main Street merchandise?
Yes,
if the
I think it
villages-
says,
It says local shops.
Local
My question is,
shops.
is it local shops as in on Main Street or local shops as in
Local shops in
someplace in Cape Cod?
Right.
we can hold that till the next meeting if people want to just make sure that everyone who's sort of interested.
Just curious if the Village Association was at all involved, and
Okay,
it is
so
on the Main Street.
is that your motion to
Yeah,
to
you have
hold?
time if you want to hold it.
We could just get little more information on it.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, we have Falmouth for Christ, El Amanco Revival Church for the Nations, Marina Park, Saturday, September 7th, 2019.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have Wedding Parking, Melinda Chapin, Minot Beach East Parking Lot, Saturday, September 7th, 2019.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wedding Ceremony, Judith Roth, Minot Beach East Parking Lot, Saturday, 9/28/19.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wedding Ceremony, Jared Franklin, Old Silver Beach, Friday, May 8th, 2020.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And William Lippincott, Chappaquoit Beach, this is a wedding ceremony, Sunday, 9/22/19.
Move approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. Next, we have the quarterly report from the Falmouth Police Department. Chief Dunn.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to come share ongoings in the police department. Currently, right now, staffing levels. Currently, we are funded for 59 this year. I have 4 vacant positions right now. I have 1 officer currently out on military leave, another officer currently on sick leave, non-related. I have 2 officers on light duty, and I have 5 officers currently out in line of duty injuries. We wish them all speedy recovery. We've recently hired 1 new cadet who will be starting the new Cape Cod Joint Base Police Academy on July 8th. That is Christopher Alves. Fine young man. I think there was a little article in the paper about him last week. He's a Marine, and he's going to be a great addition, I believe.
Great.
So that leaves 46 officers available to work in the police department, including myself right now. Our summer help, we're gearing up for summer. We've been able to hire summer officers. We've hired 7 again this year. We've rehired Elson Costa and Robert Pike. They've been with us several summers, and we're very fortunate that they came back. Elson had been in Woods Hole, and Robert had been up in Goodwill Park. The other new hires are Jaylene Austin. She's going to be located up in Falmouth Heights. We have Daniel Blizzard. We're going to put him up at Old Silver Beach. Michael Renton, Old Silver Beach. Kayla Salem, be on Main Street. And Justin Strand will be on Main Street in the evening. So that will cover all our locations for the summer. Some stats related to calls for service from March 1st to May 31st. Self-initiated calls, we've had 2,636 calls for self-initiated. Dispatch calls for service, 3,039, for a total of 5,675 calls. That's down by 8.76%, which is good, 'cause same time last year. Last year, we had 6,220 calls. But some of these calls are taking a little bit more time than they normally, they're a little more in depth, so, but still happy to see the call volume down. Our overdoses from March through May 31st, the overdoses, for that period, we have 32 overdoses. We've had 6 deaths. Police Department Narcaned 12 individuals. Police have served 41 Section 35s during this period. Section 35, if you remember, is our committals through the court for treatment. Home visits, we've done 13. People who have accepted treatment, a total of 12. 8 have gone into detox, 3 in outpatient, and 1 in a 12-step program. And these people didn't accept the initial help, but after the home visits, thought about it, talked to other people, and then reached out to representatives to get help. So we're gonna continue with that program because it is working.
Thank you.
Several people were unable to locate because they are either homeless or living out of town. But we also share the information if they are out of town with other communities. And most of the police departments on the Cape and in southeastern Mass do have programs that they do home visits, so that's why we share that information.
Chief, could you just speak to the fact when you were saying some people don't accept it at first? So, do you have officers who are reaching out a couple of times to these individuals? Because are they sort of?
We reach out to them immediately.
Right.
When we respond to the overdose, we're responding along with the fire department. They are put into protective custody, but they're not brought to the police station like someone who's under the influence of alcohol. They're taken to the hospital. So that's maybe like the first, chance to intervene. The hospital tries to intervene with them, try to get them some services. They may not accept that. Those individuals that have overdosed, we go and visit them. Sergeant Semino and some other officers, along with a recovery coach, will go and seek them out and explain what services are available to them. We also explain it to the families too, what services are available, so that we can. It's a team effort to get them some help. And if it doesn't work the first time, we keep trying. And if it doesn't work the first time and they overdose again, that's why our numbers are up on the Section 35s. It's our policy in the police department, if we deal with you twice on an overdose, we're going to Section 35 you.
Great.
And we've been doing that with success, because people will go away and come out and thank us. So.
Great. Thank you.
Domestics from March to the 31st of May. Domestics in progress, 66. Domestic violence past calls, 26. Disturbance calls, which came in as a domestic, but then kind of like reevaluated, 120 for a total of 212 calls. Restraining order served, 72. Restraining order violations, 8. Like I said, out of the 120 disturbance calls that came in as domestics, 59 were actually domestics. The rest of them were just people not getting along. I want to talk about Police Week a little bit, because it was extraordinary this year for us. Police Week, as people are aware, and many of you are aware, and you had the proclamation, and thank you for those that attended, could make it, was Police Week was about May 12th through the 18th. And our annual memorial took place on Friday, the 17th, which at the same time we dedicated our new memorial out in front with the assistance of members of the Pierce family. Samuel Pierce families were present. I also made the trip to Washington, D.C. this year, for those who aren't aware, and participated in National Police Week. Did that for a couple of reasons. Officer D. Miranda and Officer Moore were recipients of the Top Cop Award. What the Top Cop Award is, it's the National Association of Police Organizations, and they give out Top Cop Awards every year to one incident per state that they feel follows their criteria. This was the 26th annual Top Cop Award ceremony, and it was created to recognize law enforcement officers for their selfishness acts, courage, and sacrifices that they do every day. America's finest who have gone above and beyond the call of duty to keep this nation safe. And this year, Top Cop Awards were presented to 31 men and women from across this great country for different incidents that have occurred in law enforcement across the country. Unusual this year, if you remember, as I said to you, one incident per state per year. The awards committee this year felt Massachusetts deserved 2. And this year, Officer Ryan Moore and Officer D. Miranda both received the Top Cop Award for the event that took place here on July 27th, the shooting. Also receiving the Top Cop Award were Officer Sean Geary and Detective Van Ness from the Yarmouth Police Department, related to the Gannon shooting back in April. Phenomenal event to hear the stories of these brave men and women, what they did to protect their fellow officers and their citizens in their community. So really nice event. Really proud of both Officer Moore and Officer D. Miranda. And they were both present in Washington to receive those awards. Also, while I was down there, which really brings back reality, is the candlelight visual. The whole week of Police Week, they have events. On Monday night, they had a candlelight visual on the National Mall. Over 30,000 police officers, families, relatives, friends, and citizens were on the National Mall to honor the 371 fallen heroes that were being added to the wall this year. The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Wall was dedicated in 1991. Currently, there are 21,910 officers' names on that wall that have lost their lives in the line of duty. So really a moving experience to be down there. I would recommend it to anybody, whether they've lost a police officer or anything like that. It's just unbelievable. But I was really humbled and honored to be able to go down there and support our officers as well as the other officers from the Weymouth Police Department and the Yarmouth Police Department. So, unbelievable event. As I said, we're gearing up for our season. So we are prepared for our upcoming events, the July 4th fireworks, the annual street fair, the Barnstable County Fair, and the Falmouth Road Race. So we are, all our plans are in place, and we're ready for when it comes. One other thing I wanted to share, and I have a thumb drive because I have some pictures. Peter, I might your assistance on this?
Goes in your black box.
Okay, where? Oh, that down there. See, I wouldn't even have found it. Thanks. Yep. Hidden in plain sight. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Hidden in plain sight is a way to give power to the parents. It is a program that we have done here in Falmouth for a couple of years. We did it a couple years ago up at the Seacrest, and we did it, and we also did it a couple years ago, last year, I believe, up at Falmouth High School. Power to the Parents and Hidden in Plain Sight room provides parents with clues from their teens' bedrooms to help them determine whether or not their child might be experimenting or using drugs or alcohol. The room decor and compartments and items that can conceal are located throughout the room that we've built, and I'll show you in a moment. The trailer adds power to your parenting by being informed and then intervening. Addressing the problem behavior early is important to preventing negative consequences and unsafe decision-making. Since, like I said to you, we did it up at the Seacrest a couple years ago, it was a great success. We did it last year at Falmouth High School, it was a great success. But what I heard from parents afterwards were, geez, I couldn't make that event because we had soccer, we had baseball, we had ballet, whatever it was. So we decided to take our show on the road. And we've gone out and purchased a trailer that you can see here. And
You need to go to the bottom left there.
that's what I'm looking for, yeah. Technology here, which one?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, right there.
That's the side, parents only, and it is parents only. As you also noticed, on the bottom, this trailer is funded from seized local drug profits. This trailer cost the town of Falmouth nothing. Also reached out when we were building the inside of this trailer. We've already partnered with the school department. We have been a partner with them. We've partnered with the Sheriff's Department, the Substance Abuse Commission. Then we needed to build the interior of this. The Carpet Barn donated the flooring. We had money to purchase this, but when we told them what we were doing, that they wanted to become part of this, they wanted to become part of this education process. Falmouth Lumber donated the lumber to build the closet and the material that we needed. Granite City Electric donated all the electrical supplies for the lighting inside. Walmart donated, I believe we had a grant from them, that we got a community policing grant from them, but the local Walmart donated a TV, a DVR, some furniture, and everything else for inside. Napa donated a converter so that when this is connected to our truck, it is self-sufficient. That's just a bigger picture on the side of the logo. That's the inside of the trailer. And within that trailer, we have items that we allow the parents to come in and look at them. And you'll be surprised what we have in there, that some very ingenious hiding places. So it empowers the parents. Again, you're going to see it around. We're going to take it to sporting events. It can be reserved. You can see the phone number there. We're going to, I took it to the school committee, showed it to the school committee. They're impressed. It's going to be going up to Upper Cape. And the other thing I meant to say, it's the first one in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to be mobile. They are across the country. There are ones that have it, but nobody in Massachusetts has one. And it couldn't have done it without the partners that we have. All the labor was done by the Sheriff's Department. And we're going to be training more officers in the police department. We're going to be training staff members from the schools. And we're going to be training volunteers from Human Services. And it will show up at wherever there's an event and there are parents, the trailer will be there, and we'll be showing it to them to try to educate them.
That's great.
Good idea.
Madam Chair, just to interject, the chief and I have spoken about the possibility with your concurrence of making this available for members of the Board of Selectmen before a future meeting, just for your convenience to have the opportunity to meet with the chief and officers involved and do a walkthrough as well.
That'd be great.
Great.
Yeah, we would love that.
We can set that up.
Thank you. It's really, just really impressive. I mean, you know, one of those things that I did hear from a lot of folks who weren't able to make it to those events, that, you know, that was sort of the thing that they had wanted to really be able to attend.
Right.
And so this, I think, just makes those opportunities for education just that much more available. And you can think of that list of all of those, some of the events you've already named, but all those events that take place, you know, where parents they're with their kids and their family events, and they can have that opportunity to just go in and
It's
take
going to
their
be at
time
all
and
the
look
school
at
open houses next year.
Great.
And it's going to be at Playing Above the Influence. We're going to have it there at the Commodores game. Anywhere. And anybody can request it at any time. The businesses that you saw on the side, Walmart, Napa, Falmouth Lumber, they want it in their parking lot on a Saturday. So when, you know, people are coming in doing business, they can be educated. The night I had it up at the admin building, it was there for the school committee to see. There was a soccer game or something going on. I had more parents coming over for that. What's this? What is it? So it's good. And we've got, as you can see on the front wall there, we have pamphlets for information on drugs, alcohol, vaping, and the TV has a DVR hooked up to it that we're playing information on also, and our officers are there to answer questions also. But it's a room, it's an interactive room that we want the parents to go through the drawers, go through what you see up on the counters there. There's some pretty ingenious hiding places.
I love the way it says to parents, you know, that the police are partners with you. I mean, it really is that reaching out, you know, kind of across the aisle, come on in, and, you know, we want to work with you. So
Yeah.
I think the message is fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions about the quarterly report?
Just congratulations to Officer Moore and DeMiranda. That was.
They also, I meant to say, they also received an award from the Irish American Police Officers Association on May 4th, before we went to Washington. That was up in Malden. And that was 52 officers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts received awards from that association. They also received the Medal of Valor from up there, too.
Well, they certainly deserved it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you. Report from the Affirmative Action Committee.
This is such great equipment here. Fantastic. Select board?
How's that look?
Thank you. Looks good.
And so this is just, it's a computer, or you can use this if you prefer to
Yeah.
advance forward and back.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Joanne Treisman. I'm the co-chair of the Affirmative Action Committee.
Patricia Oshman, the other co-chair of the Affirmative Action.
So we're happy tonight to come and talk to the Board of Selectmen a little bit about our committee. This is one of the 50 town committees that we have in Falmouth. This is a committee that is in the process of change. We have the members of our committee here. We have 5. We have Lynn Rhodes, we have Pam Harding Barrett, and Megan Hannawalt, and then Dale Kapp, who always comes to the meetings when she can. We have a couple of different people that like coming to the meetings, and our liaison, of course, is Megan when she can be here, when she can be at our meetings. We meet on the second Monday of the month at 7 o'clock in the small conference room down that way. So this is a committee that Pam and I found out about when we were members of the No Place for Hate group about 3-4 years ago, and it was a committee that was not really functional. There was a lot of trouble getting a quorum. At that time, Scoba Rhodes and Lionel Hall were the only members, and then Lionel moved out of town. So I think Scoba was happy to see Pam and I come, but that meant that there were 3 of us that always had to be there to have a quorum. And then, unfortunately, we lost Scoba last summer. And so we had big shoes to fill, and we did our best to figure out what we're doing next. It was hard because it was difficult to know what the purpose of this committee was. This was a committee that was born in the 80s. It changed in the 90s. There was the hiring of George Spivey, who was the affirmative action officer, but then when he left, his position was eliminated. So we had affirmative action activities at the school side and at the town side. So we began to reach out, and we got to know the people in Mashpee. I'm not going to read all of these words, but I wanted to put it up there. We worked really hard this year on our purpose statement. And again, with the Mashpee Affirmative Action Committee, Marie Stevenson, and we are trying to look at how we function with human resource people in the town who work with employees, human resource people in the schools who work with employees, but then what do we do about what's going on in the rest of the town? And is that our position? I mean, where do we come into that? So some of the words in here, promoting, embracing, and supporting the cultural enrichment of our diverse population. This is a community that have people from many places that come here, that live here, have been here for decades. How do they make sure that they have equal opportunity, but also are treated fairly? One of the things that you see further down where it says foster civic engagement. I don't have a clicker. Do I have a arrow on this, Peter, or not?
Use the mouse.
I can use the mouse. Do you know how to do that?
The mouse on the tray right below you.
Oh.
No, the mouse.
Oh, there's a mouse.
There's
Oh,
a
there's
mouse.
a mouse.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, this is so fancy. Well, anyhow. So support and suggest and implement programs or activities. So No Place for Hate is doing some things, but they're sort of on their own plane, and we interact with them. Act as an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen, responsible for reviewing this policy. And then our equal opportunity officer, who is Denise Coleman with the town, and Joanne Santa at the school. So we're all trying to work together to make Falmouth a so much better community. And here are some of the events we've been involved in. The Color of Fear was a video shown at the Harborside Federal Housing Project. And Bobby Richards had said that this would be something she'd like to sponsor. And Megan coughed up the $15, I think, for us to rent.
Rent it for 24 hours.
Rent it for
Such a
24
deal,
hours.
right?
And it ended up being a night when it was freezing rain, sleet, and we
Third
had
night of town meeting.
and we had town meeting. We had 30 people who came, 25 of whom stayed for the discussion afterwards. It was a very moving video where men, it was particularly about men, talked about their feelings about their own cultural background, but also other people, and how you learn to have the feelings and know how other people are. Many of us have been in situations, have come from other cultures, have lived in other cultures, and we know the feeling of not being able to make yourself understood or having stereotypes be the reason that people interact with you in a certain way. So this was a really wonderful experience, and it was free because Megan paid the $15. And then the next one we had was the Falmouth Commission on Disabilities. We invited the Kathleen Haynes, who was the chair of that committee, to come to our committee, and we said, what can we do together? What do you need? So we had CORD, which is the Cape Organization for the Rights of the Disabled, and we had an evening event at the Herman Room. We all learned a great deal, and the picture down here I like you to look at is it's sort of a tower about ability, that we use the word disability, but it's what are people able to do, and how do we value those people? And then the third one that I have a picture of tonight is our Road to Racial Justice. This is a game that's free. We've made it available to Lawrence School. We've made it available to Girl Scouts. We've made it available, as you'll see, to the Human Rights Academy. Different churches are using it. It's a game that teens can play that looks at the planet Terra, who needs our help to get rid of superioritis. And it gives them situations that they can then decide, what would you do in this situation? That was
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that show. What would you do? So we present the scenarios and the group discussed and they come up. Different versions, you do this, you do that, some suggestions, but also a space for them to be creative and express themselves. What would you do if somebody had approached you in a situation that, your uncle did a bad joke and he was very racist? Those kind of things, how you would address that. You would have talked to your mom, you would have talked to another adult, how you would address. So it's really interesting.
And they came up at the Human Rights Academy. We're going to show you that picture in a little bit. The students there came up with some wonderful ideas on their own. So it was a really good interactive kind of game, and we do make it available for people. So here are some of the participation, the things we've been involved in. So you saw the Color of Fear. International Human Rights Day was in December, and an award was given to Scoba Rhodes. So Lynn and Patricia and I attended, and David Vieira was there, you'll see that picture in a minute, to honor the work that he's done over the years. He was a mainstay in this community. He was a teacher at the Upper Cape Tech.
The dean, right?
The dean, and president of the NAACP. So it was really a great honor to be there and represent him. White Ribbon Day was held at the library, and that celebrated. It brought out information about domestic violence, and that was a very moving event because you had men who stood and took responsibility for being men who maybe didn't stop other men from misbehaving. Then there's the Falmouth Racial Justice Book Group that meets monthly at Gus Canty,
And then the CORD presentation, the Woods Hole Diversity Advisory Committee met at the library. There were well over 100 people that came to that. There's a lot of interest in this community to do things that make it a better community. How do you get people to stay here? How do you get people to come here and work? You have to make it a community where they feel safe and they feel that people are going to be kind to them. Then the Human Rights Academy was May 2nd. We are also endorsing the Juneteenth celebration. It's June 19th, but I think it's on the 17th this year at Peg Noonan. Yes, 17th? 15th. Okay. But it celebrates Juneteenth. And Cape Verdean Day, we've talked to David Vieira about endorsing that event, so you'll hear more about that. That's upcoming. So here's a picture of us at the Human Rights Commission. I'm going to go quickly because the Bruins are playing, so I don't want to be too late for us tonight. But you can see the lineup here for that. Oh, and John Reed is there as well. And so here are speakers that we've had. So this is all since last September.
Exactly.
John Moore from the NAACP, Bobby Richards from Falmouth Housing, Lionel Hall, who was a former member, and I did talk to Eric Turkington. He was one of the early members in the 80s. What is it that you did then? What do we need to be doing now? Marie Stevenson from Mashpee. Nell Fields was a commissioner on the Barnstable County Human Rights Commission. George Spivey spoke with us, Kathleen Haynes, David Vieira, and Joni Santa and Joan Woodward from the Falmouth High School came to one of our meetings. So the meetings are open to the public. Anybody who's interested, we love having Dale come, sometimes Sue O'Brien. Teachers come and give us ideas or ask questions. And one of the things that we find is we can't adjudicate. We can only listen and make referrals. And then if we need to, let the selectmen know, let the police department know if there's any problems that are ongoing. This was a wonderful event, the Human Rights Academy. This was my 3rd year of attending. How many years is this?
This has been about 10 years. It's about 10 schools, about 100 students in average. It's hosted at Cape Cod Academy, and it's been created by the Human Rights Commission, who just now has been changed names. I am proud to say that now it's Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Commission. So please make note. You will hear more about our New Horizon. And we bring together schools from the Cape and in different formats every year. And also they present their projects, what they have done in the community, and they share that. And this year, in partnership with Affirmative Action, we did the social justice, the board game, and many other things came through. And we would like also to see our schools engaging again. They used to come to our...
The Falmouth,
the
no
Falmouth
schools from
public
Falmouth
schools.
attended this year.
Unfortunately,
but we had a wonderful spokesperson who did the keynote, Zig 808, those of you who know his rapping. He's fantastic, 15-year-old who had Grammy nominations for the work he does, and he tells it like it is. The kids appreciate it. I even appreciated it. And the young people in these programs, they sometimes go to Haiti. They raise money to go to Haiti to do work. They raise money for the shelters in Hyannis. They raise money, Riverview School raises money for environmental issues. So they come and they present this. So there's a sense of leadership they have in human rights, in international rights. Many of them go on to college and those kinds of majors. So we really enjoy being part of it, and I'm so glad that Trish brought that to our attention, because I think it's really appropriate for us to try to be involved. So here are our future plans. I don't know if they've started the game yet or not.
This is important, don't worry.
Yeah, so we're trying to establish our school relationship with Joanny Santa, I think is her name. We we never were sure who the school committee person was or who the school was. So we've really had to struggle here to figure out where we sit and who we are. And Trish and I went to the new superintendent when she first arrived, and I'm sure she just remembers everybody that she saw the first month. But we'll continue to do that. And then the Lawrence School Social Justice Club now has our Road to Racial Justice game. The Falmouth High School does have a Human Rights Club. We want to keep promoting that. Falmouth Academy as well. And one of the things we proposed on our purposes was to include a high school junior on our committee so that they would come in and get to serve another year before they went off to high school. It looks good on your application. And we're a very easy group to work with. And again, as I said, the Falmouth School Committee. And I wanted to put this out. This is one thing that we are trying to figure out how we're going to replace George Spivey. This was the job description for him. And it was revised in '07. And the things that I want to point out are he served as an advocate for those who'd been discriminated against. He could advocate for improved treatment and fairness for persons or members of the community. He could identify problems and conditions in the community which may be or appear to be unfair or unjust, develop programs, projects to improve any situation identified, provide outreach to disenfranchised segments of the population, and provide assistance to the Commission on Disabilities. So we all kind of can work together in this community to make it a better community, to make it a fairer community, to make it a community where we talk to each other. And so that's something that we feel very strongly about. So I don't know if you have any questions.
I just have a quick point from the Assembly of Delegates, and great description that we did sort of re-energize the Barnstable County Human Rights Advisory Commission now. And just wanted to, you know, in terms of another way to liaison, that committee used to have members from every community on the Cape. So there was that kind of direct connection. And that's different now. That was changed. So one of the things I just want to encourage you is, you know, I always like to Falmouth to be the one that becomes part of that liaison for Barnstable County, because there are so many resources there, particularly where the position, it does now, you know, no longer exist the way that it did. So
Yeah,
it's another way to reach out.
It changed a little bit.
Yeah.
The town representative was actually Scoba.
Scoba,
Yes.
right.
But I am Human Rights
Yep.
Commissioner, now changed the name, but anyways, so we keep bringing
Good thing.
together, and that's why we partnership, and I use the two hats, and trying to bring together the community. I think Falmouth has a very heavy numbers in terms of the importance here on the Cape, and we want to be more out there, more exposed, more active, more voice.
And helpful to people that need something, to, you know, a place to go, somebody to talk to.
Great, thank you, ladies. Yeah, Doug?
So when I think of affirmative action, it makes me think of employment opportunity. And I wonder if that's still a big part, because I didn't really see that
Well,
there.
what you're seeing is the change in the way that affirmative action is from the 60s when it was first set up, was to make sure that when my husband and I started teaching in the 60s, he made $5,500, I made $5,000. Same background, same education. And I went to the school and I said, why is he making $5,500? And they said, well, we give our men more so they can support their families. So, you know, I had an early lesson in unequal action. But then as it's gone on over time, it's a place where you can put civil rights. It's a place where you can say that are people being treated unfairly because of their culture or the color of their skin or the language they speak. So I think it then came out into the community more, that where do we go when someone tells us my son on the bus was called a Mexican because his last name sounds Mexican, and that he should go back. So who handles that? So the mother said the school bus driver did handle it, and we asked her to report it to the principal, but she didn't. People are reluctant. So can we get that information and help people to be able to handle that? Where else would it go?
Yeah, and I think to Doug's point, I think what Doug is asking, I mean, we have both on the town side and the school side, there are affirmative action officers to
Right.
sort of, with that more traditional perspective of addressing, sort of employment grievances. Now, there's some concerns about that structure that the board has, that the committee has talked about. But I think what the conversations that I've been part of is that other piece you saw when Dr. Spivey held that role, that proactive piece, rather than responding to employment issues, that other piece of kind of going into the community and addressing, not a specific event as much as sort of, the tone, the tenor of the community. I think that's something that a structure we used to have, and now I think we have I think it's fair to say we have a little bit more of a traditional workplace affirmative action, where we have an officer, Denise Coleman, for the town that addresses those issues when they come up.
Right.
And-
But I'm
and-
not talking in terms of issues, but
Right.
just in kind of looking at the big picture, are we being inclusive? Do we have a
Right.
correct ratio of diversity in all of our workplace?
And again, can we make this a welcoming community for people to come in and want to stay? That they feel that they're accepted here? I mean, some of you may remember the 1984 court case, which is where George Spivey's job came from. The town of Falmouth was ordered to hire an affirmative action officer because of a Mass Commission on Discrimination suit that they lost. So that sort of started it, and it sort of evolved. And people found that this was a good way for us to show the court, if there's another case, that we are proactive. And we keep it up.
I'm glad you're keeping it up, because Falmouth's got a great history of inclusiveness. Quakers used to come here because it was a safe haven way back when, and I'm pretty proud of that.
And then just a huge thank you, because I know, as you noted when you started a few years ago, I mean, we couldn't even get a quorum.
Right.
Usually we would show up, and in the
And we
beginning, it
thank
would be
all of the-
Scoba and Lionel and myself, and I don't
Right.
count as a member, so it's really gone from having not even a quorum to now really being fully fleshed out, to having guests who come
Right.
and visit on a regular basis and contribute. Natalie Kanelopoulos comes
That's
quite a
right,
bit from the
Natalie.
school committee. She's not a member, but she comes quite regularly, so it just has a much better energy, and I think some movement, and I know we'll be hearing some more conversations that come out of the
More to
committee.
come.
Great.
To come.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Peter, can I just take this out without clicking on it too?
As long as you close the.
Okay. While they're doing that, let's just get the next
Okay, I don't want to ruin that for the next
business
person.
item ready. Report on current conditions at Minot West from the Beach Committee. Mr. Magardo?
Thank you. You're next. Thank you.
So, Bruce McGardo, Beach Department, thank you for the opportunity again. My associate, Paul Moskowski, was drawn away tonight, so I'm going to speak on behalf of the committee and the department. After the meeting that took place out at Minot several weeks ago, a list was put together of ways in which we could mitigate the issues, the hazards, that kind of thing, and still amp up the access to the beach. That was presented to Concom. All but one item was approved. And so what exists right now is the DPW attempted to secure with snow fence the bridge. That's been vandalized already in less than a week and a half. Nails are exposed, wood is exposed, rusty bolts are exposed, and it's a major issue. The fencing around the caretaker's foundation was ripped apart by winds and water, so that doesn't exist anymore. Hazard signs, temporary hazard signs have been put up. More permanent signs are being ordered, and we're going to secure it that way. The beach department, with the cooperation of MES, will be putting out hazard buoys along the shoreline to prevent people from diving into rocks, because you can't see them at high tide. The drainage issues in the parking lot have been about 95% addressed. We just need to tighten it up just a skosh before we open up. So we're in good shape there, thanks to the highway department and that sort of thing. So one other thing I wanted to mention, at the last beach committee meeting, the beach committee moved that they would request from the board permission to change the parking status at Minot West from tourist resident to resident only. That's based on the fact that there's only two pieces of beach people can have. And It seemed to make more sense to give that to the residents and not be in competition with day trippers. The beach on the east end by the channel, at high tide, at best, is a quarter acre. That's a lot. That's not a lot of beach for people. There's ample beach to the western end, but access is impossible at high tide and dangerous at low tide. And so we're on the horns of a dilemma. More needs to be done. More needs to be done in a proactive way fairly soon, because we're going to open up in 3.5 weeks. And so I'm told that there is some pictures available that Peter has, if the board would like to see that.
I think it's important.
Okay, go ahead, Doug.
I just gotta say, I just don't think that the snow fence is adequate for another year. 3 years ago, we had this problem when the big storm exposed all that rebar and all that dangerous stuff, and we've been putting snow fence for 3 years. We've got 8,000 cubic yards of sand sitting at the leaf dump for years and years. There's no access to walk from Davisville area to the beach. You get guardrails right up against the asphalt, and I saw 2 people trying to walk it the other day, and they were just, it was really dangerous, and that's the only way to get there, because you can't walk along the old boardwalk anymore, because it's a dead end with snow fence. I really hope that some way we can just take some of that sand and just put it around that dangerous area, because that's the only real way to make it safe and give people access through there to get down to the beach. I mean, I know it's a kind of an emergency request, but I made the same request 3 years ago. It's just, I don't see any progress from whoever's in charge of doing that. And so it's a really big problem.
Oh, go ahead. Yep.
So I participated in the tour and looked from one end to another, and there certainly are a lot. In fact, Peter was there as well. Maybe we should see those pictures while we're gearing up.
The other Peter has the pictures.
Yeah,
Oh,
Peter
the other-
McConerty, I
okay,
know is
so,
here, and
and
show them to
You
us.
should be aware of the fact that Minot West is near death.
Right,
It's that bad.
yeah, so maybe the pictures would help.
Yeah, so Peter, did you want to, and I know Dr. Schneider does too, but let's just see what, yep, thanks.
Hi, Peter McConerty, Deputy Director of Public Works. I was out this afternoon on site and was able to take 4 or 5 of the photos. Just go through several of them. So this photo right here is the foundation that was not there previously. A couple of years back, it was exposed. But this shows the area where we had, it's not the snow fence, but it's the yellow plastic fence. When we were out there this afternoon, there's a constant 30-mile-an-hour wind out there. It's just sustained, 30-mile-an-hour wind. So what happens is the plastic fence doesn't really hold up. The wood fence is a little bit better. But when I go through these photos, you'll see that Public Works, the Highway Department, did put up some of the wooden snow fence along the side of the bridge, and it's already been, kids or somebody already basically unwired it and pulled a 4 or 5 foot section back so they could get over the bridge, either coming from the Foster Road side or going from the beach side over towards the Foster Road side. This is a photo, if you got onto Minot West and you came across the beach and you were heading towards Foster Road, the edge of this, as you can see, is you can see the concrete abutment here, some exposed stones. This is the edge of the bridge, the side of the bridge. There's rebar sticking out of it. There's some rusty spikes sticking out of it. It's not a safe passage right now. It's not safe at all for trespassing. So our intent, what we were looking at doing is for Public Works is to block off the bridge. We still had some more work to do. And we were actually going out there to do some more work this week. But when we do the work, it's between the wind and some of the vandalism, it's not holding up too much. This is the water side of the bridge. This was done recently. What they basically did is they went and they mollied the 2x4s right to the side of the bridge. and then they attached the snow fence to that. So that seems to be holding up okay. That's the water side. This is, if you were walking down Foster Road looking at the bridge, we had a section of snow fence off, and it was, pieces of it were taken off so they could get to the beach. And it might be, Doug, exactly what you had said, for the access along Minot Road. Now, what I will say, along Minot Road, in the last week, we got, Public Works got a couple of emails regarding the safety on Minot Road. So we did work with the conservation agent, with Jennifer, as far as being able to cut back the Rosa rugosa and the sand to the edge of the road. What happens is it grows out, and it grows out fast between the sand and the wind blows it out there. But we are going to be out there this week, probably tomorrow or Wednesday out there this week to cut back for the roadway. Doesn't create a large area, but it might create a couple more feet, so people will be able to get on.
Can I ask you a question about that? Would it be possible to cut back a path on the backside of the guardrail? Because those guardrails are right up against the asphalt.
So, whenever Public Works does anything within the road, within the beach out there, we have to go to the Conservation Commission and request and ask to see what we can do. I believe, without seeing it, I believe that is the dune area, or there is beach grass back there. In the past, we've been approved to cut back to the edge of the roadway, but to get behind the guardrail, that would be, it's just an approval process. We'd have to go through the Conservation Commission to see if.
Well, then, can I ask you a different question?
Yep.
Is there a possibility that you can enclose the dangerous nails and rebar, but yet keep a path open so that people can come along the landward side of this obstruction? Because that's what they've been doing for years.
Yeah, so, see if I have some other photos. This is another photo of just the face of the bridge we looked at. You can see the concrete abutment, you can see the stones, and you can see the edge of the bridge. It's been jagged out, it's been jagged out there. I'd say probably a good 2/3 of the bridge is covered with sand, with beach sand. That first third right there, if you get onto that, it's difficult walking on that with shoes on without spraining an ankle. The wood's just punky, there's nails sticking out of it. Being a beach, kids are gonna get on that with wearing shorts and no shoes. So it is a dangerous situation. We can go out there, we can bang the nails down.
I'm not asking for them to walk on that, but to the right, as we're looking at it here, on the landward side,
Yep.
can we maintain a path? Put fence on both sides of the bridge and
Yep.
yet maintain a path?
Yep. Yeah, it's something we can look at. Doug, you had made a comment a minute ago regarding sand on the beach.
Right.
And we have so much sand on the compost facility. I was just made aware today, I did not know, there's a 2011, 2012 comprehensive dredge permit that the town has. And my understanding is the verbiage in that document says that the town cannot add sand on Minot West. So that
Aware
would
of
be,
that.
that would be this area. I haven't seen it, but that's what I've been told, so.
I agree, I know that that's the case, and it hasn't been nourished ever since that big project, and then it all washed into the channel.
Yeah.
And Conservation said, well, that's not productive, so we're gonna eliminate that, but this is a kind of a special situation. Is the reason that this isn't removed now because we're waiting to see the outcome of that other project that might involve this?
So, the director had a presentation a couple of months back regarding the other project, the more in-depth project with
Right.
the groin swapping and so our consultant is working, does have the project contract with that, and he is working on that, and it is expected to have, he's working on the design and the permitting on it, it's expected to have that by the end of this year.
Will that incorporate this work as well?
That will incorporate, with the structure trading and the groin trading and what's what, and that's where it gets a little gray area as far as the abutment for the bridge, or the bridge of what can be
What you're
swapped
moving.
and what can be. So right now, they're working on it. The question was asked, is it possible to maybe break this off but but then you'd be doing two permit processes as you go forward with this. I mean, I think where we are right now is, I know Dr. Snyder wants to get up and speak, but I think where we are right now is, for Public Works side, we probably want to go out and do a better job, get rid of this orange fence and put up the snow fence. And Molly, same thing, Molly that to the concrete and make it more permanent. But like I said earlier this afternoon, there's just a constant 30-mile-an-hour wind out there, and it's just, between the waves and the wind, it just really keeps on beating on the, everything that we put out there is temporary. We can't really put anything hardened.
Right. I wish, I should have taken a picture of the roadway just to illustrate how that's a super dangerous little stretch of road. And it has a lot of pedestrians walking it because they can't get through here.
What Public Works was planning on doing, actually this week, well, this is a picture looking down across from the bridge, but what they were planning to do this week, we put the snow fence up. The snow fence, a 4-foot section of it was opened up. They were going to go down and put a, basically a post and rail fence up there to block it off. But now we're on a holding pattern on that. We're not gonna do that right now, until we figure out what's going on with this. But as you can see, the exposed portions of this bridge deck is, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to be on, and kids being kids, they're gonna walk out and they're probably gonna sit in the edge of that right on the water, so. So I think what we can do is just we can put up the slats, we can put up the snow fence, and we can put up the signage.
Did I hear you say that you were thinking about putting up the same wooden fence, the same snow fence on that other side? Right there, just the left side of the bridge? Is it too jagged?
On this side right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can, this is the coming from the Minot West parking lot. We were gonna put it across this area right here. But if we did that, and we wanna leave this section open, we'd only be able to come across the bridge portion only. We'd probably have to go up the other side. So it would come across the face, and then would come up this other side, and that would leave this sand area open. These rocks are still here, but there's rocks on the front of the bridge also.
Yeah, we can step over rocks. It's
Yeah,
just-
I mean, the bridge just looks like, I mean, aside from, we have separate issues about the usability for folks, but that to me is just like, I don't know, it's just a lawsuit waiting to happen, because, I mean, you know, there's just a million different ways someone can get injured.
Same thing with the roadway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the area that we were somewhat talking about as far as the path. It's about 4 feet wide, 4.5 feet wide. It gets a little narrower as it gets up to the top of the bridge, but.
If there's some way you can maintain that, and there should be some sort of a gate at the other end too, so people can get through, because if the fence is, how far does that fence continue? I can't see it, but it looks like it goes all the way up.
It goes to the other side of the bridge, and then it comes across, the other side of the fence, and this is that 4-foot opening that was
Right.
opened up.
You're not gonna ever keep people from going through there.
Right.
So I would suggest you just encapsulate the bridge and leave a path open on the left. It's the only way it's gonna be left intact.
Make this opening here more permanent, and come across the face of the bridge and come up the side of the bridge and leave that other side open.
Yeah,
And
any,
leave this
any way that you can think of to at least continue access through there.
Any other questions for Peter?
I mean, that's something that, with the bridge being open right now, that's something that we can do. We're going to go out there to do more work this week, so.
Right.
We can solidify that and come across that and.
Okay. Well, thanks for the time.
finalize it.
Good. Dr. Schneider, I know there's a lot of folks first, so we'll start. Go ahead.
Did you want these photos? Did you have your own
I
photos?
have some, but I can't do it in 2 minutes, so I'll just say what I have to say.
Just across the top, you can just hover over those, though.
That's all right, I had Barb Schneider, Precinct 4, and I was part of the Community Preservation Act when we came to the town and got the approval to buy the western part of Minot Beach. So I also negotiated with all parties concerned, including Concom, where we would put the required turnaround on Foster Road and the emergency vehicle and disability parking area, which was all part of the purchase for a very specific reason, that we did not want to have the town purchase a piece of beach that would become a neighborhood-only beach, which is what until we've had a lot of discussions out at the beach, unfortunately, it appeared, as you saw, you cannot walk around that end of the bridge. Even at low tide today, you could not pass around the end. And so my husband and I and Mary Ellen Allwart, a number of us have been trying to come up with a solution. So I'm here tonight to make sure our concern for the safety of those using Minot Beach this summer and in summers to come is heard. The photos you've seen, and I also took a bunch of them, was to show you what it looks like right now. It's a shock. Those who have not been down to the beach in a year will be stunned. I remind you that this is one of the few public pay beaches and the only beach located in the Wacoit, Hatchville, and East Falmouth area. Minot is in desperate need of both short-term and long-term fixes. This year, we need to have temporary coverage for the wood of the old bridge and for stairs to allow beachgoers to walk from the parking to the western section of the beach. We need rusty bolts, which currently stick up inches, to be pulled or pounded down so barefoot beachgoers don't hurt themselves. We need structures secured so no one is able to jump off or into dangerous area. These are flat pictures. I have to tell you, I have some photos of things you could jump off of the top and into that have some of the worst rusty metal pieces you've seen, and kids will find them. We need signage that states there are dangerous structures under the water depending on the tide. Long term, we need these structures removed, the dunes restored, and the dangerous remains of piers and pilings pulled out of the ocean edge. This plan should come to town meeting in November. These fixes absolutely need to be independent of any project being planned for the road, bridge, and beach area. These are necessary this spring and next year in order to make the beach safe for use. We should be both sad and embarrassed that we have let the beach get to this state. I know it takes many okays. I've been part of getting those many okays in many occasions. I ask you to gather all the necessary groups together to agree to both an immediate and long-term fix for Minot. The CPA part of this beach was not funded to be a private beach for a small area of neighbors who can walk to it. And it is truly the only area of the beach now really desirable because it still has depth to it. Help us get our beach back and make sure no one is hurt there in the meantime. And thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mary Ellen Allwart, Precinct 4, and President of the East Falmouth Village Association. Dr. Snyder pretty much covered it. We walked out there today. My main concern tonight, to ask you to make it safe. That's town land. It's open to the public. If you went out there and viewed it, it's horrific. Accidents are going to happen, could be fatal, could lose an eye on those spikes. You can't keep kids behind fences. Further down the beach, in front of some of the homes, there's also snow fences that's been opened up. What I saw today were bicycle tire tracks. So they opened it up, ride their bikes on the beach. There's so many things out there they can get hurt on. It's just a lawsuit, a big one for the town, waiting to happen. So whatever you can do soon to protect the public would be my number one concern. My second concern would be making that beach usable again for the residents of East Falmouth. Any help you can do to make that happen in a timely manner so that no one does get hurt would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Any other comments from folks who are here tonight? Okay, come on up.
My name is Dean Lundgren, and I'm the new president of the Davisville Association. We're going to be discussing this issue when we have our annual meeting. my grandparents built here in 1925 when those beaches went out about 100 yards. And we have seen this develop, as these other people have said, over a period of years. And it is a very serious situation today. I think in terms of liability to the town, something is going to happen in the short term. It would seem to me that the way to address it, and I wasn't prepared to speak here now, but there, as was pointed out, there are some short-term issues that have got to take place by probably the end of June to protect as best you can from kids being kids and getting hurt, and then to have a comprehensive way to deal with this. I was born in 1944. 42. I was here in the 44 hurricane when that bridge was lifted up and put on Foster for a couple of years. That bridge should have been taken out a long time ago. I don't know all the conservation issues around it, but I think from the town's point of view, there's a major short-term liability issue, and then there's a long-term how are we going to fix it right. I'm not an expert, but I think all of us in the area feel the same way. And if you haven't seen it, you should go. I mean, it's an accident ready to happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board? Yep.
Would there be any possibility of us making a motion to request town manager to try to put sand over this hazard? Would that have any use?
I don't know that, if there's, I mean, I think we could direct the town manager to come back with some further information, but I think if we have if there's, from that permit from 2012, I mean, we can't supersede that and put sand on. Obviously, we would have to go through conservation. I mean, there would have to be
I
a
understand, but I'm
process
just
for
saying
that.
as just a heads up that it's a big concern. I mean, it's been going on a long time. I would think if they had taken up the issue a few years ago, we might have already finished it. So I would like to request that we ask them to take action formally. If that needs a vote, I'd be willing to make a motion.
Why is removal not the more expedient action?
I really don't know what the reason is why it's not done, but
I can understand the stonework, because the stonework may be connected to the groin work to be able to put the.
it's mostly concrete and wood. There's not much stone that's there.
I mean, the concrete, but the wood could, I'm not sure why that
Well,
couldn't be
if you took
taken.
off the wood, you'd have a lot more rebar sticking up, so you'd probably have to do both.
But you could at least, you could deal with the rebar.
If you look under the wood, it's a massive rebar sticking up.
Sam, and then maybe Peter, if you can weigh in. I know there's, we've touched on a number of issues, so maybe you can sort of address those.
I mean, it seems like we have a public safety issue here, and I don't know what is keeping us from taking some of the remedial action that's really required to at least make it safer. In the past, whenever issues have come up where there was a Conservation Commission jurisdiction, safety was the priority, and they couldn't be stopped for that, for conservation reasons. And I just wonder whether that's not still the case. I just don't want people to say, look, it's Mother Nature regardless of human safety, and we have a situation where I think that's the case. And I'm a little disturbed that we don't get a variance, if you will, to allow us to secure the safety of people who are gonna be using that area, regardless of whatever fencing you put up.
Peter, did you wanna, I know we've sort of put a lot out there, but can you just
Sure.
speak to some of those issues?
Sure. So, we can pursue all of those avenues. Certainly, to answer or respond to one of your concerns, Sam, about addressing the short-term issues, that's exactly what DPW has been doing this week in terms of the snow fencing. That's the quickest, most immediate remedial action we can take about the immediate safety concerns. Certainly, that's not a foolproof or long-term fix by any measure. So I don't know what the process will look like for just removing the structures. I know that one of the concerns that we've talked about, if we just remove the structures and we don't have the authority to nourish, then we're really expediting the loss of that beach and the dune systems and the erosion of the roadway. So it is a complex set of interlocking issues. It's not just Conservation Commission locally, it would be DEP and State Endangered Species Act review that would be required. But, certainly we can pursue that. I believe that preliminary work is already underway to that end. And, it just dovetails with the question of how long is the big capital project going to take, and are we really going to get there before the capital project gets there, which brings a lot more material to the beach, and so is that the better timing to be talking about removing the structures?
So as part of the tour, we had engineering, we had administration, there was some follow-up with, certainly with the Conservation Commission administrator. And these are massive structures. These are going to, if it were even permitted to just pull them out, first of all, there's a ton of them. They have tentacles. They're gonna leave craters. And as Peter just said, they're right next to the road. So that's all going to, fundamentally impact that entire area. Things that we have, for example, the Coastal Action Committee looking at. So, it's a complicated problem that has been under review for a while. So I think we have to separate that out from the concern of the community right now. And I think one of the things the board can do is, with this new information from Peter McConaty in terms of the initial thinking of trying to put the snow fences and the wind actually not abating. This season, we had 40 days and nights of rain. I mean, this season has been unusual. It's cold. Seems like it's the never-ending early spring. And so maybe there can be another review with the conservation administrator in terms of an update with kind of the failures and successes of the initial plan, so that it, with the concerns of the community for the safety issues, and to ask the Conservation Commission administrator to take another look at how the initial fixes are going, because there are some problems. And I think that that's something we can do expediently, because we've got to get these, beaches open, because folks are already gonna be coming. When you see bike tracks right around these, kind of dangerous areas. So I think that's something that Peter could work, because there was really immediate response. I mean, Jen is working with Peter and the engineering department, and I know Peter's got, just, trying everything. They're out there every single day with more plans. So that's one thing I think the board can do immediately.
I don't think we're gonna be able to do any emergency removal, because as you said, it's a massive structure, and it's a big project. That's why I had suggested some emergency beach nourishment, because if you look at that side of that bridge, well, you don't see it here, but if you look at the side of it, it's a place where kids can actually crawl under. So that's the biggest concern I have, that some kid's gonna go under there and get stuck on a piece of rebar, or who knows, we might have a collapse while he's under there. That's the biggest fear I have. So I'd like to see sand put around that and just encapsulate it.
So then what, Peter, can you just sort of clarify for us and for folks who are listening, what the process would entail around that very specific request? So beach nourishment for some really specific spots of the beach to sort of, go along with some of the remedial measures that DPW is taking, recognizing that exactly, we're not gonna be ripping out this bridge next week. There's there are a number of other steps, but.
So honestly, I'm not sure I can.
Okay.
What I would say is we've got 3 agencies, 1 local, 2 state. And I'm sure there's a process for all 3 of them for some sort of an emergency process. In terms of the specific issue, Peter pulled up the photo that is showing, where someone could potentially get underneath, but I believe that's gonna be fenced. So I think that's, we could put sand there, and how long is it gonna last, and, it's gonna be eroded again. I think fencing, if, to address that specific safety issue, I think fencing is the best short-term measure that we can take, and that is just a local Conservation Commission approval, which I think Peter already has.
And that's what I'm talking about, just to follow up, because when you think about sand, it takes massive machines. Could be, $1 million for that if you were, as opposed to fencing and then putting the $1 million towards the bigger project, so, and involving state, you literally have to, I mean, when you see where it is, you have to drive these massive machines over dunes.
I understand, but
and
we've been
that's
doing
just-
this fence every year for a while.
Yeah, it's just the permitting process is, just impossible.
We need to work on that.
Dr. Schneider, and then Mr. Roberts.
So I just want to say, my husband and I went out, we've spent a lot of time out there. I mean, this has been our beach since 1977. So I just want to tell you that we came up with this idea, and I've talked to Peter about it. We did a video of it. We drew on the thing. Our suggestion was fence off the sides of this thing, make it completely not accessible, but put a temporary set of stairs at the very end of that the pier, put a fake flooring that's 4 feet wide going straight back to where it turns into the nice sand cover. In fact, I know the beach committee has they have mats, they have boardwalk, I mean, no big deal. You've covered, just put a temporary flooring. Peter even talked today about plywood, just for this year. Put railings on each side of that, so it gives people an enclosed walkway of 4 feet, 2x4s, anything to get through one summer. And you make this walkway so people can come up that, stay on the walkway, a bike could even ride on it. I think kids are actually riding their bikes and going off the end as a dive, okay? And then you'd have a solution so people can get to the one part of the beach. Literally, the top of that pathway, even though it looks kind of wide at the bottom, I have to tell you, you're within only a 2 foot opening between the side of that, where the kind of jagged wood sticks out, up at the top area to get through. That's a little scary to me. There's no way to really make that wide enough, especially if people are carrying beach chairs or whatever. So I just wanted to say there's a couple of things to just temporarily get through this year, cut off the rest of it. That one foundation, it has a big opening that actually is like a little sauna, like a pool with big rusted metal sticking up in it. Any kid who discovers that at the top and trying to jump over it, they can land in that and be really hurt. Those are things you're not seeing in these photos.
If it's really full of water, you're not gonna see what's underneath.
It's not even full of water, just even if it gets a little sand coverage, or kids think it's fun, or it's a dare. So I just can't say enough about, we can all sit here, we can say we can't get permission for this or that. At some point, we have to get people around a table and say, this is a serious issue, someone's gonna get hurt. If Frank Duffy went out here, he would have Mr. Toad's eyes going like this at the dangers that are here. And all he tells me for the dog park is, no negligence. This is negligent.
Thanks, Barbara. So just, what sort of we're hearing from folks here and from the board is maybe, if we can have on our next agenda, if we can have Jen, if we can sort of have some conversations about some of these potential remediations, and maybe have Concom, staff sort of weigh in from conservation on what might be possible in that, along some of the lines of what we've heard tonight, some of those suggestions and possibilities for the short term, to address some of the issues, along with what DPW is doing. And I know Mr. McGarter can probably weigh in with some other thoughts he might have about it. Yeah, Sue?
And just for consideration, I don't think it necessarily needs to come before the board, because that's 2 weeks at least. So I think it can be done administratively quicker, because they're already familiar with the issue, it's already been studied. It's just this first round of potential fixes has run into some problems. And I think if the administrator goes back and looks at, for example, Dr. Snyder's idea, that may resolve some of the issues.
Right, I'm saying maybe come back to the board and report about what some possible options are. So not to wait for that time period to do anything, but to come back so that the public can kind of hear what some of the thoughts are about doing.
Madam Chair, there was a gentleman that wanted to come, but
Ronnie, did you want to?
Just quick.
You just have to come to the microphone to pick up at home.
I didn't want to bump all over you.
And introduce yourself.
What's your name?
You just have to tell us who you are.
I'm sorry.
We know,
I'm
but-
Ronnie Allward, I'm just so excited. I'm Ronnie Allward from the Village Association. I've lived there all my life. I was born in 1942. I was born on Davisville Road, so I've seen a lot of changes. The longer we wait, the worse it's gonna be, and I'm telling you, something's gonna happen. It really is. We're gonna do this temporary thing, I think, but boy, when you do that temporary thing, follow through, and I would make it so we don't have to be going through this every year, because somebody is going to get hurt. They really are. And that's all. Everybody has said most of the things that need to be covered, but I just wanted to, put the emphasis on that. Please don't stop.
Okay, so
Thank you.
a question for the lawyers on our board. We've been told about the dangers of this. The only solution I can see temporarily is we close the beach. I mean, what I'm hearing from the audience is this is a dangerous thing that someone's gonna get hurt. And for us not to actually take that action worries me, that we've been told someone's gonna get hurt with this thing. And if we hear that and don't take that action, are we doing the safe thing? I'm sure that's not what the audience wants, but all they keep saying is, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen, this is a dangerous thing. It's not something we can solve the danger of it, but we can protect kids, protect the public, and protect the town if we close this part of the beach.
But they're probably not really gonna stop going there.
But from a liability point of view, if we've said the beach is closed.
So,
Yeah, hey,
just-
Let me
just to-
just have Peter weigh in and then Mr. McGargle. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just to follow up on that point, and, I'm not necessarily advocating for closing the beach, but I think Mr. Jones is right on point. If that is our, primary driving factor and we really want to absolutely solve it, I'm sure what Frank Duffy would say is fence the whole thing and post it no trespassing. And you could fence the whole thing and post it no trespassing. It would be very difficult for folks to access. They'd probably tear the fence down and access it anyway. And as I say, I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but, it's what's the level of risk tolerance is really what it comes down to. And I guess I would hope that, that we can significantly mitigate that risk with all of the fencing and signage that we're going to do without closing the beach. Would just be sort of my personal view, but it's not a zero-risk
Right.
approach. There is no zero risk.
There is no zero risk at this point. Mr. McGardo and then Mr.
My
Finneran.
comment to Doug's suggestion, I have staff that could enforce what you're concerned about. But before 9 o'clock, after 5 o'clock, and off-season, the enforcement of that becomes a difficult issue. And that is a place where we have lots of vandalism every year. So to say that we're going to prevent people from using it, even if you put a no trespass sign, I think we're creating something that is not, it won't fit on the leash.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask the board to circle back to one of the points that Bruce made in his opening remarks, which is the measure of making it a resident-only beach. It's a small, resident-only parking lot, thank you. In speaking with Frank Duffy, it takes one population out of the potential lawsuits. I also view it as a customer service issue. I don't know that we want to be charging people $15 a day to go to this particular beach.
Yeah.
I move that we accept the suggestion of the beach committee to make that resident only on that west side.
Second.
All those in favor?
Well,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
one of the questions is, how do you enforce it? Do we have beach stickers that will discriminate between residents and non-residents? I mean, how are you gonna
We do
know?
that at Old Silver.
Yeah, so
Is
just
that how
our
it works?
regular beach
Okay.
sticker versus the
Simply
day
will-
pass.
We will not set a parking ticket to somebody who wants to pay cash,
Right.
okay?
I got
That
it.
means a net loss of about $12,000. And that's what that beach typically brings in for revenue. So you should know that as well.
Right,
Thank you, appreciate that information. Can we just have a vote on that, or are you going to speak to that? Okay.
I know you're not gonna be able to take the whole bridge away.
Mark, your name for the.
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. But you said you were looking for 4 feet. Couldn't you just jackhammer a corner out of that to give you the 4 feet between here and there and put your fence up against here and let them walk down that way? You aren't really taking that much of the bridge away. I mean, you won't really have to take that much out of there to give you 4 feet. You know what I mean? It'd just be a top triangle-shaped piece. It wouldn't be that difficult, I wouldn't think.
I guess also
Peter, can you just speak to the sort of practicality of sort of cutting off part of that bridge? I mean, I think there's rebar there, but, yeah.
Madam Chair, could I just jump in with a suggestion? I think we've heard a couple of potentially really good ideas about how to make it safe and preserve access. I guess my suggestion would be that, that we
You
have
guys,
some
the departments
we go out
talk
to the
about it.
site, have some dialogue with DPW and conservation and see how we can make, the objectives are clear?
Give us a chance to take care of this and report back to you at your next meeting.
Great.
Thank you. Great, thanks for everyone for the input, and thank you, Peter.
And to clarify, Madam Chair. Thank you. The board has voted to make this a resident parking only.
We didn't vote it yet, so thank you. So all those in favor, we have a motion and a second?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, yes.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. McGardo, thank you, thank you, Mr. McCarty. Yes,
Just one last quick comment, so Public Works will hold off until we,
You're working with Jennifer and the town manager to
We'll be
make this
talking
a better
further tomorrow.
situation.
sounds good.
Maybe just modify a little bit.
so don't go out tonight and do the work, which I know you were going to, just wait till you talk to him tomorrow, so.
Get ready.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, next we have a request from Falmouth Housing Corp. for a waiver of the building permit fees for the Gifford Workforce Housing Project, 591 Gifford Street, Falmouth. Is Linda? do you wanna-
Linda's here.
Yep, I saw her in the back there.
Good evening, Linda Clark, President of Falmouth Housing Corporation.
Excuse me for 1 second, Linda. Folks, if you want to talk about it, we just go outside, the mics pick up everything. So, no, I know it's sensitive, so we just want people at home to be able to hear. Go ahead, Linda. Thank you.
I'm here this evening to request that the board approve a waiver for the building permit fee for Gifford Street project. That's the workforce project with 10 one-bedroom units. We've got a little bit of a gap in the project at this point, and a waiver in the building permit fee would be great. We plan to do some fundraising and some value engineering on the project, so we feel that it's viable. It's not a major issue, but it would be helpful to get the building permit wavered, the fee wavered.
Any thoughts from the board?
Just one
Doug?
question, not actually related to the fee waiver, which I'm in favor of, but I read carefully, I didn't see, is it a rental or ownership?
Rental,
Oh, good.
50 and 80% units.
Okay, then I'm even more in favor.
I'm gonna make a motion to waive the fee.
Second.
All right.
And this is consistent with our policy, just the fees that are
Waivable.
waivable.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct, yep.
It's a good policy to have.
I learned my lesson.
All those, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you, Linda.
All right, we have a request for sign variance, John Wesley United Methodist Church, promotional signage for events, Vacation Bible School, spaghetti dinner, clothing sale, and Christmas fair.
I move approval.
Second that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Another request for sign variance, St. Barnabas.
I'm gonna have to recuse myself for this one because
Okay.
I'm a contractor on this.
Okay, St. Barnabas Episcopal Church.
Oh, wait a minute, that's not the same one.
No?
300 committee is next, right?
300
I'm sorry, excuse me, yep, you're right, I'm sorry. Request for sign variance and license, 300 committee, to place a sign for the Two Ponds Conservation Area within the Gifford Street Road layout. Come on up. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Jessica Rittenauer. I'm the Executive Director of the 300 Committee Land Trust. And I submitted a letter outlining the request, and there were a couple of exhibits, one including the property, a map of the property itself, the site plan, and showing a proposed location for the sign, which does fall within the Gifford Street Road layout. The text of the sign, it's a 300 Committee Land Trust sign showing the Two Ponds Conservation Area, which is open to the public. Folks are directed to park in the Atria lot. We do have an easement that was granted when the land was deeded to the 300 Committee from Atria. If needed, I could certainly, I have a presentation to share any of those images if there's questions, but hopefully the submittal is clear. And the reason for the request is if we actually put this sign on our property, it would be actually more than 40 feet back from the road. So we're concerned about visibility. The road layout is just so wide there. So the goal is to alert the public that this is a conservation area for them to use. We're in the midst of a boardwalk and handicap accessible trail project that will be opening up late June, early July. So we really want the public to know this is a resource for them.
And the 4 parking spaces are already marked in the atria parking lot.
Yes,
correct.
Designated for.
Right, which Ray had raised that issue, right? I
Yeah.
think, yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd like to raise the idea of changing the wording slightly, though. And because I think we should say something like dedicated parking in Atria lot. Rather than saying parking available in the Atria lot, try to make it a little bit more direct
Right,
and say,
okay.
okay, you can get parking space in the Atria lot. So
Right.
Ray made that point, and I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, if I just interject, either the word dedicated or reserved, you suggested be added before parking to achieve the end
Sure.
you brought up.
Whichever,
Selectmen, thank you.
either one of them could be fine. I know it was
Gotta be
used,
most helpful.
I thought about it a different way, and just basically saying, people know there's dedicated parking. It's not reserved from a standpoint of, well, who, reserved for whom, you know, it's like.
Got it.
Yeah,
Dedicated
but
may be a better term.
I will,
Yeah, excellent.
I like the word dedicated. I think that sounds great.
The only other thing, just a thought that I have about, you know, for someone who worked with folks with disabilities for a long time, sometimes when you're traveling, you know, if it's very clear that something's real, I mean, this is a really special place with, that you guys have done a lot of work to have that boardwalk be accessible. It might be nice if there is even just the little wheelchair logo, so that people who are driving, who are visiting know, because a lot of times, open spaces and natural spaces aren't great for folks in wheelchairs, and you have made
Right.
a big effort to make it that way. It may just be on the signage something, all you need is maybe that little symbol
add the
to
logo.
just let people know.
The
But,
icon. Okay.
any other
Great.
thoughts about this?
Great
it's a
suggestion.
good idea. Yeah.
Motion for?
Motion to approve?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Doug, you can come back.
Request for sign variance now for St. Barnabas Episcopal Church, on-premise promotional sign for Lobster on the Lawn. This is a perennial favorite.
I move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Interview, vote, and appoint members to the Edward Marks Building Advisory Committee. Mr. Suso, do you just want to, or Peter, do you just want to remind folks what this committee is and what the board had decided to do with it?
Oh, happy to do so, Madam Chair. The board will recall that you established this committee and adopted the mission statement that's included in your, and the charge, it's included in your board packet, and had requested that we advertise for interested applicants to the committee. You designated 7 members, including among the 7 is one to be determined by the Historical Commission, the other 6 at large, and I believe for those 6 spaces, you received a total of 5 applications, and at least 2 of the individuals who had applied indicated that they're not able to be here this evening.
Yes, and we did get specific communications from them,
What an
really
impressive
pointing out
committee
that they
already.
were interested. Yeah.
It's an impressive group of 5 that we already have.
Yes.
I agree with that. I think we should be very thankful and move along expediently.
Okay, so what about, I mean,
I want to interview Mike Duffany, because I'm not sure what he's
I
done.
I know everyone is here, but I do think, just sort of given the late hour, given we've reviewed the applications, I will just read out the individuals, but we have Troy Clarkson, Barbara Wayan, Michael Duffany, Leslie McDonald, and Thomas Renshaw. Does anyone have a pleasure about nominating and approving these individuals as a slate?
I so move as a slate.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
It's
And thank you.
gratitude.
Great.
We would love to, if the Historical Commission has their,
Oh, we got
Yes, Ed,
Ed.
if you want to come up, Ed, and
Yes, comment.
just if you come up to the
Haven't
microphone.
met us yet, as I recall.
Ed Head at Historical Commission. Now, there's still an open position. Does that still mean, though, that people could apply if there's an inquiry?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We hope someone will. So if anybody's out there
Yeah.
and you didn't get a chance or you didn't know about it, we really hope someone else will apply.
Okay,
We picked
thank
that
you.
number for a reason,
Yeah,
so
okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
we don't
Thank
want to
you.
have 3 votes in this committee.
No. All right, excellent. We have approved 2019 annual seasonal license renewal, common victual license, Smitty's Homemade Ice Cream, 326 East Falmouth Highway.
Approval?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion of the draft agenda for the community forum, the treatment facilities, and sober houses. This is for the event that's going to take place on June 11th. Peter, did you want to?
Sure, so this was drafted after some dialogue among staff members and Selectman Moran and Selectman English Braga. We had some input from Doug Brown, Selectman Doug Brown as well. And the draft agenda that you have before you, one of the things that we sort of, overall, a couple of thoughts in terms of the structure of the forum, and a lot of these ideas came from Megan, so please
Try and
don't,
blame
don't give me credit for all these good ideas. So one of the thoughts was to do a call for questions in advance of the forum so that we could get some questions in writing and be able to, you know, prepare for those questions and have, you know, rather than, you know, have all of the forum, you know, clearly we need to allow an opportunity for folks to speak and to comment and to ask questions that have not been written in advance. But one of the thoughts was it's helpful to get at least an opportunity for those questions to be received in advance so that rather than have multiple people getting up and asking the same thing in several different ways, you know, that we can, you know, try to get to a number of different topics right up front.
And I think also with that, you know, sometimes people get up and they ask these great questions, and some of those questions require, you know, some research. And so to the extent that that's possible, some of the members as we go through it are not people that we direct, they're from other agencies, but to the extent that we can try and, you know, sort of flesh out some of those responses and have some useful conversation. We've left a lot of time for public questions, sort of from folks that are there, but the idea is to try to get some substantive information out there. So giving them in advance, it's something that the League of Women Voters has done for a long time for their events, and it proves, I think, they run great events, and it proves to be really a great way to just get information out there, so.
The one thing I would like to us to be careful is that our last thing we did at the high school, our presentation took up almost all the time of the public's comment.
Yes.
And I see that what we have in the draft agenda has some very specific times
Yes.
of 3 minutes. I worry that that will not be 3 minutes. Very few people make a 3-minute presentation. That they end up being, the 3 minutes ends up being 12, and we end up eating, as you're saying, we're set aside quite a bit of time for the audience.
There's an
But-
MC that's gonna just shut people up, because that's why it's a printed agenda.
Okay.
So just like when we have League of Women Voters, you know, you know yourself as a candidate, when you get a yellow
Stop
warning,
sign, yeah.
and then you get a red stop. So depending on who the MC is gonna be, those are the instructions that are gonna be given.
And during the meetings that we've had, we made it really clear to staff that's gonna present, and they were there at the meeting, you have 3 minutes, and they felt that was, that was doable. Because again, most of what the people who are invited are gonna talk about it's gonna be in answering questions that are asked of them, rather than a whole bunch of, you know, prepared.
Okay.
But I agree, we have to be really cognizant of that, it's a good point.
Yep, point is very well taken, and I think having, if the board at the end of the conversation today is comfortable and votes this agenda, being able to send the agenda to the presenters and reinforce in writing, you know, we really have a lot of speakers, and we really are going to be enforcing these time restrictions. So for the benefit of the public, perhaps I'll just quickly run through the agenda so folks at home have an idea of what we're looking at. An opening, welcoming remarks from the Chair of the Board of Selectmen, 5 minutes. If you want to volunteer to cut that down to 3, perhaps we could shave 2 minutes there. Falmouth Town Council Frank Duffy speaking on the limitations of municipal authority in the siting and regulation of treatment facilities and sober houses. We've asked him to hold that to 5 minutes. We do have confirmation that there will be 2 members from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, one representing the Bureau of Substance and Addiction Services, and I believe that we will ask only one of them to speak. I think that that representative is the one who has jurisdiction over the issues that are most germane to this forum. So that's 5 minutes. Let's see, we have the director of the Massachusetts Association of Sober Houses confirmed for 5 minutes. And then we have staff members, the Falmouth Human Services Director, 3 minutes, the Town Health Director, Scott McGann, or potentially the Chair of the Board of Health. And Scott mentioned in an email recently that the Board of Health is interested in having a role in the forum, so we might swap out that speaker role. But I think the subject matter would remain the same. And then we have Chief Dunn slated for because he's the chief of police, we gave him an extra minute. He does have some data that on responses that we would like for him to be able to present. And then we jump right into written questions submitted by the public in advance, half hour for that, and then at 7 o'clock, we open up to questions and comments from the audience, and then we look to wrap it up at 7:55.
Right. So, I mean, I think this agenda lays out an hour and a half for questioning out of a 2-hour period. So we're gonna really try and hold tight to those limits, but, I think it's clear from this agenda that the bulk of it, 2/3 of the meeting, that's my math is right? It's 2/3 of the meeting.
That's right.
Is set aside for questions. That's the main objective of this meeting, is to really allow people to ask questions of the people that address these issues and sit at state level to really, give us information that as a municipality we might not have, sort of fill out that information we've already shared, so.
There are some other I'm sorry, if I may.
Yep.
There are, I did just want to mention before we open up to a dialogue, the other invited guests. What we had talked about is on the stage would be the Board of Selectmen and the state legislators, and I know that at least Representative Vieira and Dylan Fernandez are confirmed. I'm not 100% sure if Senator DiMacedo is confirmed. Is he confirmed as well?
I think he is.
Okay.
I believe he was
So-
from early on.
So they will be present and on stage. We'll have the MASH director on stage and the Department of Public Health directors on stage. We have invited Gosnold, and they have confirmed that they will be there, but we are not planning to ask them to speak. They'll be in the audience and available to answer questions.
And just if I could clarify, I know the MASH is a voluntary group it's more like an association. And will the Department of the Bureau of Substance Abuse and Addiction Services, do they have any supervision over the administration over sober houses? Or are they just a services-based organization?
So I don't, one of the reasons that we have Mass Department of Public Health is so that they can answer those questions.
Right.
What exactly are the limits of their regulatory role? What authority do they have? I'm not personally well-versed in that.
Right.
We believe they do not,
Right.
but we'll get that clarified.
And then if not, who does? That's what we're still really trying to get to.
I think that's the, obviously the million-dollar question is,
Right,
it's probably no one, but.
Madam Chair, could I just note as well, we may also have some information from Fire Chief Mike Small
Yes.
on their role in this. He's not specifically noted, but that might be interjected as a
Yes, that was an.
necessary
yeah.
balanced item.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that, he was on our initial list.
Right.
And he did respond initially when we sort of started thinking about this. I know he responded the same day that we sort of sent out the general email to department heads and chiefs about that. So we definitely want to leave some space for him to, should he want to weigh in.
I think it would be good for sort of the look of the agenda to just add him right along with
Yeah.
where the chief of police, if we could
Agreed.
make that.
From a
Yes.
balance standpoint.
Yes.
Exactly.
And he was part of that initial, he was on our radar. Initially, it was both chiefs, because they really, both fire and police obviously play
Work
a
together.
pivotal role and work together on this, so.
Now, I'm thinking that I'm gonna write a list of questions myself and forward it to town managers so that they can send to these invitees, so they'd be forewarned of.
Yeah, so I think what we thought we would do is we would encourage folks, if we vote on this tonight and everyone's good with it, that we would encourage folks, both by posting the agenda in the paper and noting that this is what's coming up, and we're calling for questions ahead of time and how people can submit them, which would be both through email with the, and this will be, noted, but with the title June 11th form, doesn't have to be anything more complicated than that, but also to set up a place that they can be dropped off in town hall for people who don't do email, so that they can physically, if they have a question, come and drop it off, and we would collect those in advance, to.
Right, but also, and those will be forwarded also to the invitees, to give them a forewarning.
To as much as we can, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're down to a week, but,
Yeah.
sure. Whatever we have on Friday, we can send to the,
Okay, so the deadline's gonna be Friday, because I think we ought to encourage people to submit by a certain date.
I think Friday has to be the deadline, since it's next Tuesday, and,
Right.
yeah, we should at least give the folks we've invited the weekend to
Right.
think about it, even if they don't respond to us, but be able to think about it.
So Friday noon.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yes,
Good
so
idea.
someone can send it.
Ideally, Friday noon.
Right.
Madam Chair, could I just interject? Again, we've only designated 30 minutes for that function. So
Right.
if we get overwhelmed with requests for written questions, we're gonna have to make an administrative determination about which ones are submitted, which ones aren't, unless you wanna
Maybe
extend it.
amend the agenda, if I might, just to say questions from the public, and that way you can kind of handle it as you go.
I think that's
Or
a good
maybe you should
suggestion.
change the closing date to 8 PM or time as needed.
I think the only thing is we're inviting people who are coming, who've, from the state, who clearly then drive back to wherever they're going. So I think they need to have a finite, endpoint. It doesn't have to be the only conversation we have. We've gotten these folks, and I just want to say it's taken a ton of effort. Staff has really worked on it. Our state legislators have really helped. David Vieira has really helped to sort of get these people to commit to come
Right.
down here. So I think, just to honor their time and the fact that they're willing, and hopefully, if it's a good experience and they're willing to come back if we
Right.
have further questions. So
Okay.
I think we have to have a firm endpoint, but an hour and a half is a lot of time for
Right,
questions.
in the question and answer period, I don't think, that doesn't concern me or the public, I think, interfering with the general questions. It's when our presentation
Yes.
takes
runs
up,
over.
runs
Right,
way over,
exactly.
and we're giving them all the data that they think they already know,
Yep.
and they have other questions. They say, well, it's a smoke, they feel like it's a smokescreen.
Right.
I think we should be able to take the written questions and group them, and that would consolidate the thing, so we're not rambling on and just repeating over and over. But, and that grouping literally can be subcategories, so that when you pose it, you can say, and here are some pieces that people are looking for under that particular kind of grouping.
Yeah, to the extent that, the goal of the questions in advance, again, is to sort of cover some broad topics, give a little bit of a heads up to our guests to see if we can get some answers. I don't know how many will end up, if people are, already planning to come to the forum, they may save their question for the forum. So we'll see what it is. We just want to open up another avenue to make it as productive as possible. Mark, Peter, did you want to make a comment while Mark is coming in?
Sure, I guess I was just going to sort of make a pitch to keep the agenda the way it is with respect to questions submitted in advance, and initially just a half hour for that, because again, I think, the people who decided to come and really want to speak, let's let them speak.
Right.
And then if there's time at the end to come back to more written questions, if we really haven't covered a whole bunch of important written questions, we can come back to it.
I think that's fine. Again, I don't know that we're going to be, a deluge of written questions that are all going to be different. Some of them are going to be repetitive. Go ahead, Mark.
We're going to have Gosnold there. We have them already, and we don't know the number or the footprint of the amount of sober houses that we have in this town. But one would have to put some simple math to it and think if they plan on building that 100 bed facility in Tech Park or expanding on their current facility, as Representative Vieira would prefer, that potentially could double the amount of sober houses in town. This third or second entity, Northeast, whatever it is, who's already purchased, my understanding, the PAL, the Recovering Champions, and the rumor won't go away, and it's coming from within and without Town Hall, as well as from members on this board, as recently as this weekend. Are they going to be there to clue the people in town as to what their plans are, if there is any truth to those rumors, or are the people in town going to be the last ones to know again? That's simple.
So I think you're asking in particular about sort of that private entity. Gosnold, as you heard, has been invited, they've accepted. I don't think the forum is probably not going to be the place that private transactions are discussed by, private entities. I doubt even if we invited everybody who has a facility like that they're going to talk about sales that haven't taken place. Your point is well taken, that people can ask some of those questions of whomever is in attendance. Gosnold is sort of a well-known and long-standing, part of the community, and so they have, upon our, request to see if they would like to come to answer questions, they are going to be there. They're not presenters. We made that very clear. This is not about, it's not specific about one agency. It's about sort of these challenges across the board. And certainly people can ask questions of the individuals and the representatives, Gosnold and whoever else comes, and they can answer whatever they're gonna answer. But, you know, the goal was really to have people who can talk about facts, about what, if anything, you know, the challenges are that we're seeing in the community, and what, if anything, the town can do. And that's why we asked sort of state agents and representatives to attend, so.
Well, I move that we proceed with the agenda as presented with just, I guess, the edit at the top, which is 6 to 7:30, have it say 6 to 8, so it's consistent with the.
Right, the edit at the top had the wrong time.
Second?
And just with the other piece about Chief Small.
Right.
Right.
Yep, okay.
And you might want to put Tuesday, June 11th, just so people are a little bit better thinking about their own calendars.
Great, sure.
Okay.
So the actual closing time is 8.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And can we just make sure it gets in the paper so that. Website, you can, yeah, website, all of that. Okay. All right, we have meetings of minutes. Public session, December 17th, 2018.
I move approval and release.
Thank you for
Second.
the revision.
Yep.
Very reflective now of the meeting.
Great, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Review of approved executive session minutes. Did we have any this time?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Rolled
Okay,
in the
we had
packet.
that
These
whole.
are- And these have already been approved, so we're only releasing them, correct? So I think what I would do is just read the dates. I'm prepared
right
to
ahead.
release them all, you know, deferring to council's recommendation.
Okay.
Okay,
You want to go ahead?
surely.
Sure, if you could.
So we have executive session minutes of December 17th, 2012, October 1st, 2012, August 27th, 2012, June 25th, 2012, both sessions 1 and 2 on that date, June 4th, 2012, May 21st, 2012, May 14th, 2012, that's session number 2, pardon me, on May 14th, 2012, May 7th, 2012, session 1, and March 26th, 2012, and those are sessions 2, 3, and 4. And I move release of those minutes.
Okay.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We have individual selectmen reports, but before we sort of do that, we just have to do the housekeeping measure of thinking about rescheduling the strategic planning. It was supposed to be for next Monday, which is number 1, the day before this community forum, and number 2, I think that Sue is going to be in California. So obviously having a strategic planning without one of the board there, so I think we need to think of another
We're
date.
suggesting June 24th, which is on the Monday on the selectmen's calendar already. And there is a calendar, Madam Chair, in the the purple folder.
I don't mean to be
You know,
difficult, but,
meeting on the 17th and the 24th.
so I'm away that's the week that I'm away, the 17th to the 24th. So I
Can we
will
slip
miss
it-
the 17th no matter what, but, which someone can chair, but I think it'll just be the matter of the 24th wouldn't be a good day for,
When are you back?
I'm back on the 24th, but not
Oh, can we
early
slip-
enough, I don't think.
Can we slip it to the 25th?
They'd be completely unprepared.
Yeah.
Why don't we, it's fine.
I'll be away on the 17th also. I'm wondering if it makes sense
Maybe
to
we
make the
just-
24th a regular meeting and then choose a different date
Yes.
later
What
on
about
for the
July 8th,
strategic.
because you're gonna be away on the 17th as well? No, you're back by then.
No.
Okay.
But I'm thinking, just push it. I mean, we used to do it in like October, so we can certainly push it to
Well,
July.
how about later in that same week, rather than going into July? Is that a possibility?
What,
Well, she's not gonna, yeah, that's what I was suggesting, the 25th.
But, so let's just take this in 2 parts. So one, Doug is suggesting that the 17th, he won't be here, I won't be here. So I don't know what that agenda looks like so far, but if there's any heavy lifting on the 17th, you're gonna have just 3. I don't know what hearings you have that day that are
Yeah, we have
scheduled
a
yet.
couple. Yeah.
So it may be something that,
We did postpone one
24th
thing
is,
to.
24th is already a scheduled meeting of the board as well.
Right.
And the 10th, why are we not doing the 10th? Just, the night before the
Sue's
forum.
not here.
Right, right.
Yeah. Sue's gone, for a strategic planning.
We
I mean,
need
there's
everyone.
no, you know.
Right.
And we must have a lot of interviews that we need to do before July 1st of regulatory boards.
Correct.
Right. That'd be the 24th then.
It's
right?
the only day we can do.
It's on the
Was it
We-
17th?
We can take a look at the purple binder, it's on the draft agendas are in there
Oh,
as
in this
well.
purple binder, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
In there as well as
Okay.
the calendar for July.
Well, who's not gonna be here after June 25th?
Okay, so hold, let me just do this and let me just look at the,
Okay.
so June 17th actually looks like a very light agenda currently. This is this is.
That's the one that has all the interviews, I
It
think.
does have a lot of interviews. It doesn't,
Yeah.
so, again, I know we have to do those before July, but, there is just one public hearing.
And it's a wetland, so we should
Yes.
probably move it.
That's why I'm saying if two members aren't gonna be here, it's probably not a good day if there's a wetlands hearing. So if we move this agenda to the 24th,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what's on the 24th, I can't
okay. Well, so far, not
tentatively.
much. So far,
Okay, okay.
That makes sense.
not much, so,
So
financial
you-
status
So
update.
you would postpone the 17th to the
To
24th?
the 24th, and then we pick another date for our strategic planning
Yep.
period.
In July.
Maybe in July, because that will, does that sound
Yeah,
possible for
sounds
folks?
reasonable to me.
When are our meetings in July?
So looks like we've got the 1st, 8th, 22nd, 29th. If not the 1st.
Not the 1st. We have the 8th,
Yep.
the 22nd, and the 29th, yes. So could we do it July 1? In advance of the holiday weekend? People comfortable with the retreat on July 1?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay.
Sure.
Monday night?
Monday
Yeah.
night? Do you have a motion for that?
Can we do it on,
So moved.
like, the beach with a blanket and some?
Sunset?
Yep, that's what I'm
Okay, so
thinking.
July 1st
Yep.
for our strategic retreat. We usually meet at what time?
6,
Five.
a little earlier. No,
5, okay, 5 PM. Do we have a motion for that? I had a motion.
moved.
Second?
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
Okay,
that works.
great. And then,
Okay.
do we need to have a motion for the other? Do we need, or we can just,
No, we'll just make the adjustments you just asked for.
great,
We'll make
thank
the
you.
17th go away and
Move it to the 24th.
put everything on the 24th.
Yep.
I may be back, I think my plane lands at
That's the
6 or
intent, right? Not to meet with
Yes.
3 members.
Right.
Okay, on the
Because
17th.
then on the 24th, I may be the only one that's not here. If my plane, I think it lands at 6, so I might even be able to get back for part of it, so.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. I did it when we came back from Ireland. We literally drove right here. My family dropped me off. So, okay.
And our usual place
Yes.
for the retreat?
Okay. Great. And selectmen reports beyond that.
I attended the beach committee meeting, but I don't need to report because you already heard it.
Perfect. Sam?
I feel remiss because tomorrow night at the Herman Room at 7 o'clock, there's a meeting on expanding the broadband coverage of our internet in
Yeah.
this town. And I would just encourage anybody that has an interest, businesses, personal, private consulting people, people working out of their houses, to come to that meeting and be heard and help support that effort. So that's, again, tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the Herman Room of the library.
I'll be there.
Me too. Events that I went to the the high school field advisory committee meeting a few weeks ago. Things have moved along. The turf is down. Most of the amenities of the field are complete. There's one fly in the ointment, and that's the prefab concrete concession and bathroom building module, whatever you want to call it. We've been told is going to be late coming. We don't know the background on it. That wasn't available to us because the operator's project manager only heard about it the morning before this meeting that we had. But otherwise, the field is complete and it looks great. And there's that one little piece that's missing. And so it's yet to be determined. There is a meeting coming up this week, so we'll know more probably after that. Like everybody here, the Memorial Day celebration was terrific and just a testimony to this town that we choose to recognize people and that so many people turn out of all ages to recognize the contributions of our men in uniform over the many years. Let's see, the memorial service, I mentioned that already. I did attend the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Alden Thomas on your behalf. The Thomas family is a family of teachers. Adam Thomas is the social studies teacher at Lawrence. Deb Thomas, Alden's mother, is a sixth-grade teacher in Barnstable. Harry Thomas is the retired physical education teacher, most recently retired when he was at East Falmouth, and his wife Karen Thomas was also there, and she's a retired elementary school teacher, so it was a neat event to celebrate their child or grandchild obtaining the rank of Eagle. That's it.
Great. Want me to pass? Pass?
Pass on to Mr. Suso.
Mr. Suso.
Thank you. A couple items. I have returned from attending the spring two-day annual meeting of Massachusetts Municipal Management Association. I do appreciate the opportunity to update issues with fellow managers as well as participate in the training opportunities during the gathering, so I thank the board for that. Progress continues on the Main Street Route 28 waterline replacement project, and as a reminder, this project work is scheduled to continue through Saturday, June 15th, at which time it will conclude for the summer season. With the actions taken this evening, the Selectmen's next regular business meeting will be Monday, June 24th. And I also want to note to the board that I was pleased to attend the Falmouth High School graduation ceremony this past Saturday morning. It was an excellent event, well-attended, as you might have well imagined. Also, I wanted to pass down for the board, we received in the mail a copy of an official citation from the Commonwealth coming from the Senate side, signed by Senate President Karen Spilka and our Senator Vinnie DiMacedo, acknowledging the town's earning once again of the Tree City Award for 2019, and we appreciate that recognition very much. It's either the 19th or 20th, I believe, consecutive year the town has earned that distinction. I also want to thank outgoing Chair Susan Moran for her extraordinary leadership on behalf of the board and the entire town for the past 2 years. Thank you, Sue. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work with you in that capacity.
Thank you.
And I want to congratulate Megan and Doug in stepping in as the chair and vice chair. And of course, Megan just finishing 2 years as vice chair, working with Sue as well. And Megan and Doug, I look forward to working with you in the time to come, and thank you for stepping up and your willingness to lead in that regard. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Did I hear you correctly that the road work on the water line will work on Saturday?
It'll probably be wrapped up Friday, actually.
Okay.
But in the request that we had received, it actually mentioned Saturday the 15th in the event that there's a couple loose ends.
Okay.
So we're not encouraging Saturday work, but it's just to make sure that we've accomplished the objective, which was to get to Sandwich Road.
Right. I will have to compliment both the crew and the police details. It's been very effective at managing the traffic throughout this whole thing, so
Yeah,
that was a good job.
My wife even complimented you on controlling that, and she goes back and forth on that road at the worst times, so. Nice work.
Compliments.
Nice work.
Just want to mention very quickly, the senior center construction is coming along, and they're working feverishly to get as much of the site work accomplished as they can. They are going to be moving the construction fence in a little bit and bringing their equipment in so that there's better access for the Commodores with their upcoming season, which kicks off on the 10th.
Great.
Great. Move we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.